nostalgia rages across the land, where everyone and their mother has a podcast, where there's still a movie trailer guy who says, in a world, three friends revisit films, shows, and games that molded them as they search for answers to life, the universe, and everything in between. Settle in and join us for Screen Refresh.
Welcome back to Screen Refresh, a show where we revisit the films, shows, and games from our childhood to try to take another look at what we fell in love with. As always, I'm Tim, and I'm joined by the rest of the Screen Refresh crew, Nick and Dean.
Hello there.
A howling good day to you.
It's the wrong franchise. So,
Hey, they still howl.
oh, true. So, our little thing that we're going to be doing today for this month is the 1985 Stephen King film, Silver Bullet, based on Cycle of the Werewolf, his novella from, I think, 83. For any of you that haven't seen this, it is a fun little werewolf romp, a little bit different from some of the other werewolf movies, just for the fact that the werewolf designs were, according to I think Dino De Laurentiis was the producer. He was not a fan of it, supposedly, because he said it looked like just a bipedal black bear, which
was cuddly.
I enjoy. It's a little bit different from the normal, like the on all fours American Werewolf in London style, more canine-esque, or some of these other giant ones with like the hulking beast looking things. So yeah, it's a bit different. It's been fun.
He's a bear wolf.
It's a what?
A bear wolf?
It's a bear wolf.
Yeah.
It's like a dire bear, essentially.
I'm just punning over here. It's really bad.
So yeah, I know I've talked about Silver Bullet multiple times in the past, but for you guys, was this your first viewing? Was this something that you've heard of before?
I thought we were watching the Steve McQueen movie.
Oh, Bullet?
And when I started watching this, I'm like, this is not about cars. And yeah,
I mean,
it features
it's
a
great movie.
vehicle. Features a vehicle.
it did. I have plenty of jokes. Plenty of jokes.
For which one?
Oh, there's several.
Okay.
I never heard of Silver Bullet, I don't think. I mean, it was really... maybe in the back of my mind, it's like, Silver Bullet, because of the werewolf, lore, but I don't think I ever really heard of this specific movie, so it was new to me as of, several hours ago.
Yeah, I'd never watched it.
Well, I am very happy to have you guys dragged along for this ride. Only because Silver Bullet, I know I mentioned previously, Predator and Silver Bullet, other than Mr. Boogedy, were two of the films that I wore out on VHS growing up. We had a VHS copy of Silver Bullet that was taped off of USA Network, so it was the TV edit. So I will point out anything that was a little bit different on the version I had on VHS, because eventually, once I got older, the cousin that I had that had the video store that I mentioned, they ended up letting me have a copy of Silver Bullet that they had there that was the actual version, rather than the TV edit. So when I watched it for the first time, in the very beginning, in one of the first scenes, there's a scene that they cut in the TV edit, and I was like, whoa, what is this? So I will point out anything that I remember as being awfully different from the version I grew up on.
When that first scene happened, I was like, this is brutal. Like, how old was Tim when he saw this? Was he allowed to watch this stuff?
I was, I think, 7 or 8. And I watched it probably at least 3 times a week. When I'm not watching that, I would watch Predator, and then I would watch Boogedy in the morning every day of the week as a kid.
Wow. I was like that with Ace Ventura at one point. There was like a couple months where I'd watch it daily, but not
very similar
Silver
films.
Bullet. Yeah. It makes sense now that you said you had the TNT edit, because I was like, he was either older or his parents didn't know he was watching this. I was like, holy shit.
There's some stuff that I don't even think would pass today to be played on TV. It deserved its R rating.
Yeah, which the TV edit was fairly tame. There wasn't really I don't remember there being a ton of any graphic violence. For the most part, everything was like a cutaway to something else, or it cut early, whatever the case may be there. So as we go on, I'll mention any of those just for anybody else that might be familiar with the TV edit. They can relive it through me.
My favorites actually like language edits.
Oh,
The big classic example is from Scarface, where they completely redubbed the movie. They didn't censor it, they just redubbed it. So with how explicit they get through certain scenes, instead of saying like, I got octopus coming out of my fucking ears, man, they completely change it to something else that makes no sense even in context. So those are always fun. Because this had language in it, but it wasn't like over the top, right?
No.
There were. I'm pretty sure there were.
It was very
I'm so
sparingly.
desensitized. I'm so desensitized by like F-bombs now that I don't even acknowledge it anymore. So I don't think there were many, but I'm pretty sure there were.
It was pretty sparingly.
Yeah, I think overall, like, it was surprisingly tame for a Stephen King item. Like, well, other than like the made-for-TV movie ones that are already going to be edited for TV. But in terms of, I know, like, Stephen King's writing, Cycle of the Werewolf, I remember being, it was a illustrated novella. So there was, like, all the comic-style pictures and whatnot in it from there was a copy that I ended up picking up in, like, Barnes & Noble one day. I didn't end up buying it because I started reading it when I remembered, oh, this is the thing that Silver Bullet's based on. And I read a couple pages and I was like, not for me. And I put it back only because it seemed a lot more brutal as far as what I was reading there. I don't know if that was just me being like 10 at the time. Reading it is a little bit different than if I were to check it out again now. But I remember not being very excited about Cycle of the Werewolf. So for anybody that is curious, it released on October 11th, 1985, and grossed $12,361,866. And was, I guess, critically panned by critics.
I'm not surprised.
I feel like I was reading some of the critics' reviews at the time, and it's, man, everybody loves getting on a bandwagon to hate something.
Well, I didn't look up anything. This is purely my own opinion that I didn't do any research. The research that I did was for one specific person that worked on the movie, and I didn't look at any like reviews or like zero. So don't say I'm hopping on any bandwagon, because as a first-time viewing, it was a little difficult.
Oh no, yeah, not you on a bandwagon, but like all the critics that if they can do like one pun that's a dig at the movie title, or if they can do some sort of like dunk on the movie in their headline for the review, that
I didn't want to turn it off. At the very least, I didn't want to turn it off at any point. It wasn't like to the point of like, this is fucking terrible, I'm gonna forget it, I don't want to do it. I did get from start to finish. I felt it went pretty quick, considering. Like, I felt once things were starting to get good, it was in the final act, and then like that was it.
I think I enjoyed this more than I thought I would, watching it for the first time. I didn't think it was bad. Like, in general, like I said, like I said this before we started recording, but my notes started to peter off because I was just like, I'm just watching the movie at this point. I only stopped to remark on a couple funny things that stood out to me, but I mean, this movie had a lot of production problems, like disagreements, and
Well,
I did read some of it.
Yeah, because the main disagreements, to my knowledge, was the making of the werewolf suit itself.
Yep,
and they like ended up casting a dancer, if I believe, to get the movements right.
I think the producer wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the producer ended up watching it and saying, like, I hate the werewolf. We just like can it, don't do it with this like suit or whatever. So they ended up shooting any of the scenes without the werewolf that they could. And by that point, it was a case of like, it's too late, just shoot it with the one that you have.
Yeah, it was for 3 months they filmed the movie and then did the werewolf scenes because they were waiting
in like the last
design.
half month.
Yeah. Also, didn't the director change hands as well?
Yeah, so I believe this was originally started with Don Coscarelli.
The Phantasm
that people might know
right?
from Phantasm. I think Bubba Hotep, bunch of stuff. So yeah, it originally started with him, and then I think there were disagreements, but he left the project and ended up switching over to somebody else.
Who was like a first time and only time feature director.
Yeah. Because I don't think this was directed, the second director was Dan Attias, and I don't believe he did anything movie-wise after that.
No,
I think it was a
he
lot of
went into
TV and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I was surprised that the producer didn't like the werewolf, just because the effects guy who did it was Carlo Rambaldi, who had 2 Academy Awards for Alien and E.T. At this point.
He's the one that I researched.
Yeah. And also he did the Argento film Profondo Rosso, Deep Red. That is another fun one for anybody that's into Italian horror. But yeah, it's for somebody so well known and prolific to then be like, yeah, we don't like your werewolf, was a little bit rough. But I personally, I like the look of it more, just because it almost felt like Jaws, how they don't always show it. They were doing it more sparingly. We just have like the flashes of like the eyes walking past or like staring out from things. And we only have like a handful of actual werewolf attacks.
Yeah, I did like that. I thought it was effective in that way as well. I understand they might have gone away from the usual style, but it did seem a little too like fluffy. I guess in the face. The face didn't seem as scary when they showed the whole thing. I guess it just looked like a wolf, just like a slightly half man, half wolf, which sounds dumb because that's what it is. But it just seemed to almost a little more Muppety, I guess, than I would have pictured. Like all of the close-ups and like hiding how it looked, like I thought was pretty effective.
I appreciated the transformation because that's always tough to do. Like once he was finished, that's when I really kind of lost it, and I felt that Jaws' less is more route is better. And I felt like leading up to the final big reveal was kind of the letdown, but like the church scene and the final transformation of you seeing him transform, I thought was pretty effective.
Yeah.
I think that's where Carlo's talents came in the most. Because it's tough at that point too, because you can't go too crazy. I mean, like American, or the other, which I haven't seen, American Werewolf in London, that came out first.
Yeah.
That one, I've always heard amazing things about, like the special effects behind that, and it's an iconic werewolf movie. But there's only so many different ways that you can portray that transformation, especially back then. So, I don't know.
Yeah, because we had like this one. I know the other big one was The Howling. They had, well, this one here, Silver Bullet, in terms of the werewolves. I think the other one around that time, a bit earlier, was I think In the Company of Wolves, which I have never seen, but I think that was another one that was talked about in terms of like a interesting take on the transformation sequence, because I think it's like they pull the skin off or something like that.
Was the original, the Wolfman, done pretty well?
Oh, like the Universal Monsters Wolfman?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for its time, it was done well.
Well, they just like kind of fade between makeup points, right? Or like
for the most part, from what I remember, yeah. So this one opened against Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, with Tremor's own Fred Ward.
Oh, I know him.
So a lot of competition. Also, October 1985, we had Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We had The Quiet Earth, based on the sci-fi novel. It's a New Zealand movie. And Reanimator, which was Stuart Gordon, who worked on the script for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids that we covered previously. So it all connects somehow.
Yeah, it's funny.
Circle of life.
I re-listened to the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and the more I thought about it, the more it really is a Lovecraft story meant for kids.
It's true. I mean, all you have to do is just like flip the switch in one different part, and it's like, no, yeah, now he's a mad scientist.
Yep.
So,
clever.
As we mentioned at the top of the show, the screenplay was actually written by Stephen King, also based on his own novella, Cycle of the Werewolf. This was directed by Dan Attias. I'm not going to get too far into the cast, but just anybody that's aware, we have the main kid, Marty, played by Corey Haim. His sister, Jane, who in the novella was, I believe, Kate, is played by Megan Follows, that you might know from like Anna Green Gables. Reverend Lowe, the werewolf, spoilers, And the Reverend was Everett McGill, who you might know from People Under the Stairs with Wes Craven, and things like Twin Peaks. And Sheriff Joe Holler was Terry O'Quinn from Stepfather and eventually John Locke on Lost.
As soon as I
He
saw
was a
him, I was
cool
like,
reveal.
it's John Locke.
Yeah. Yep.
What you guys, if you liked him, I always liked Terry O'Quinn. If you see him in this and you like him as John Locke, you should do yourself a favor and check out the movie Stepfather and Stepfather 2. It's where he plays this like serial killer who impersonates different people and then just like inserts himself into different families as the father figure. And then once people start to catch on, he bumps them off and moves on to another family. It's a good movie. It's fun.
Sounds like
and then
John
last
Locke.
but not least, we have Uncle Red, played by Gary Busey, who I
Certainly
think did a
not
great
least.
job in this. Yeah, like I think he did a great job in this. It's one of my favorite Gary Busey roles. Actually, it's probably my favorite Gary Busey role. And it still kind of breaks my heart that after I think it was 88, that he had the motorcycle accident where he didn't have a helmet and he ended up getting permanent brain damage, that over time, supposedly, it ended up affecting like his impulse control and kind of things like that. So that's when he all of a sudden slowly turned into the more eccentric, wacky Gary Busey in later years throughout like the 2000s, which I think is what everybody kind of makes the jokes about and everybody kind of pokes fun at on different shows and things like that. But it's a shame thinking back to a time when he was nominated for Academy Awards. He was kind of one of the big up-and-comers and everything. The Buddy Holly story playing in this. I mean, post-accident, he even did Predator 2. But yeah, it's all sorts of good stuff that he had back then.
That's crazy. Cause like, I was thinking of doing like the "How we doing today" Gary Busey joke, and now I feel really fucking guilty about doing that. But
Yeah,
it almost reminds me of the same thing with like what's his name, Mickey Rourke,
yeah,
because he had a similar kind of thing go on, and like you compare him from like what's that sex movie he did?
Body Heat?
8.5
No,
Weeks?
Body Heat.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that one. You compare his role to that to like everything like kind of after that, and you can't even tell it's the same actor practically.
Yeah, because I think he did boxing for a while too and whatnot. But I always think of him as like back during like Diner Mickey Rourke, where he's like the young suave Mickey Rourke that was like the romantic male lead in stuff like that, and then now he's cast as the muscled goon or whatnot, Marv in Sin City or Whiplash and Iron Man 2.
Less Marv only because he at least in terms of his face, only because of the amount of makeup he wore there.
Yeah. Plus, he actually did a really good job as Marv. So
Yeah. Gary Busey, he just seems like, well, I guess that was one of the things I learned about this too, that he got, I guess Stephen King let him just like, I guess ad-lib the lines. Not necessarily from scratch, but probably just like said everything in his own words. And it just kind of felt like Gary Busey was there just being himself, but like as like an uncle. But it fit. Like I didn't think it was bad. It was good. But he didn't.
He honestly
did, like,
was one of the
ad-lib
best parts.
his lines.
Yeah,
That's why
I
it feels
enjoyed
just so like he's just kind of off the cuff. But I think
I
it
enjoyed
works.
his lines.
He's
and
a
anytime
rascally
he was
uncle.
on screen.
Yeah, he was good.
yeah,
It's like rough at first. You're like, just the way I thought he was going to be more of a dick, but like just with his introduction scene. But later on, he turns it around.
when we'll get to it when we do the Uncle Red introduction in the movie. But towards the end of that scene after they're playing cards, I think was the point where Uncle Red kind of like clicked and you understand Uncle Red as a character in that movie.
Yeah.
But until then, we have to go to a drunk at the train tracks getting his head taken off. So the movie opens. What was that?
I was just going to say, like, when I looked at Terry O'Quinn, I'm like, it's John Locke. I heard this actor first, and I was like, it's the coach from Major League.
It's not bitter, not sweet. The real frosty treat. Won't you buy Rheingold beer?
Like, that's the only other scene I've seen this actor in.
That's who
If
the guy on the train tracks was?
Yeah, that's Arnie who gets, he gets his right away. He's the coach
He
in
gets
Major
got.
League. I didn't even look up his filmography to see what else he had done, but I knew that. His voice is very distinct.
But at least these two. So the movie opens when we get the opening credits over this kind of nice shot on the moon as it does that slow zoom out. I've always loved the score and the music throughout this movie, both the actual songs and then just generally the score work from just backing scenes and whatnot.
A couple of points it reminded me of John Carpenter.
And it has that perfect fun like 80s feel with a lot of things like I don't know, like synth and glass celestias and all sorts of fun stuff there. But we open up with spring of 1976. Originally, the novella, I believe, each chapter essentially took place in a different month, and it was supposed to be like throughout a year of this werewolf attacking a town. So a lot of the murders happened, I think, on like holidays or something. But in this case, less so. So we open up with some sort of train worker on these train tracks, and he's already drinking on the job. And we start hearing the music as he's walking around the train tracks doing his work. You see the POV shot of like the werewolf looking out from the woods. You hear kind of like a bit of the noise. And I honestly think if this werewolf wasn't involved, he only sped along a tragic series of events that was already in motion when this guy decided to take this job and drink.
Yeah, he ain't gonna get ahead in that job with that.
Arnie, he could have been drinking all day. It was nighttime, you know. He might have not just started drinking.
Yeah,
He was on
which
his
I mean
third or
is
fourth
exactly
bottle.
what you want when this guy's working on. And it's not even a case of it's like, oh, well, maybe he's working on a section of the track that's not used. Because when it cuts to morning, the train goes by. So it's like, no, yeah, this is an active train track. So we get that like Jaws style music build up, which I think, again, love or hate the design of the werewolf. I love the fact that they didn't just have this werewolf like jumping out of the woods, like at the drop of a hat throughout the entire movie. It was more wisely used in terms of just relying on the music and the snarls and whatnot and the POV shots and just flashes of eyes and things like that.
And a great red hook.
And a great right hook. He comes out and just lays a Tommy knocker of a haymaker on this guy. And this was the first part when I was a kid when I realized I grew up on a TV edit. Because when I eventually saw the actual version, in the TV edit, the werewolf comes out and the guy looks surprised, and then it cuts to the bug getting squashed in the next day when they're at the fair. In this version, he takes the guy's head clean off as it does a 360 in the air, and then we get the morning of that head on the ground with flies around it.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and maggots, yep.
Yeah, so I do like how during this scene, it cuts to all the townsfolk throughout the town as this is happening, and we see a barber giving a guy a haircut in what I assume is like pitch black outside. So unless this is some sort of like Tarker's Mill after hours haircut salon, or I don't know what the case
It was
is.
an emergency haircut. He called him at midnight. He's like, "Pop,
It's a meeting
I
in the
woke up
morning.
in a cold sweat. I need a haircut right now."
I have a job interview at 8 a.m. I'm going to be taking over at the train station. So yeah, I like how they say it was never really investigated. It was written off as an accident because he was a town drunk.
He just
Okay,
happened
so-
to fall with his neck right on the train tracks.
Yeah, and the train happened to take his head clean off without actually damaging his head. Just like a train is wont to do.
Well, they didn't have evidence that said anything else. Who knows? Except for physics. Physics, probably.
Later on, I questioned the ability of the police department. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's like in the beginning, I kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt, and the town is just getting rowdy because I figured, they're scared. Some people are dying off. But at the same time, later on in the movie, when like 5-6 people are dead, like, what does the police department do at this point? Like, it's not like New York City or like, Boston, a super major city where deaths can happen. Like, 15 people were killed last night all across the city. Like, it's unfortunate, but like it's not as big a deal compared to like middle of nowhere America, where like this small little town, 6 people died in the span of like 3 days. Like, what do you do at that point?
Yeah, 6 people, that's like 7% of your population.
Yeah, no kidding.
I guess that's one thing that was confusing for me. Maybe it's just, I glossed over some quick thing, but the timeline of the movie confused me because I didn't realize like each killing was essentially 1 month later.
No, I took it as like one night, the first night, the train guy, then the second night was the pregnant woman, and then the third night was the guy's, Marty's girlfriend, her dad.
Because don't they have July fireworks and then like the movie ends in October?
Well, they don't have July fireworks. That was the problem.
Right, they don't, but like they were supposed to. And he says something about like having the 4th of July in September later on when he gives them some fireworks. Like,
yeah.
It's like there's different, the movie is like going much further than I realized.
Yeah, because it starts in spring and then it ends on Halloween, where in the book, I believe it starts, I don't know when it starts, but it ends on New Year's Eve as opposed to Halloween. Halloween is actually when Marty is out trick-or-treating and ends up finding that Reverend Lowe is missing an eye, and that's when he figures out that Reverend Lowe is the werewolf, and that's when he starts like sending his letters, things like that in the book, to my knowledge. But so, we'll get to that. There's a lot to unpack. So we go to the next day.
Hold it in.
We go to the next day on the town green, which I love. This is evident. I think there was a shot in North Carolina, which I would love to visit just to see this town and be able to walk around the Silver Bullet shooting locations. But this is the exact town green I picture in my head when I think of like small town America, where it's like tree covered and you have like all these nice little shops and things, and then the large town green with just like a marching band style thing going, which I don't know what this is for. This is like some sort of, hey, it's spring festival.
Yeah, my notes like town parade thing. Then I realized there was no parade and they were just a gathering to talk about the State of the Union. Or something.
Hi, everyone. Glad the marching band showed up. If you can quiet down the music, we had a murder last night.
That made me laugh too. Like, he's like, hey, idiot, stop playing. We're trying to start this thing. Like, we're supposed to play the intro song. The sheriff goes over and just tells him to shut up. Trying to get through this.
Just fires one shot in the air.
Have your attention now.
So we get to meet Marty's parents, which we don't even meet Marty yet. So we have the parents and the young girl Jane sitting in the audience at this fair festival sort of thing with the town. And I like how when the mother asks her to go check on her brother, she gets up to go, and then that other blonde girl like mocks her of going to check out her brother. Like, do you have no family values?
That was like weird. Now that you mention it, yeah, it was like a weird one and done like teasing thing. Like that never surfaced again. Like I guess it just made it be like, oh, she has to take care of her brother and she hates it. But that was a strange.
No, tidbit. I felt really bad for Jane through the whole movie because I felt like she got a lot of unnecessary shit for everything that was going on.
Her mom was harsh on her.
Yeah, like the car scene later on when they get to the argument, like, fuck that. That could have been handled better.
Yeah.
Poor girl.
Like, she obviously has a good relationship with her brother. Like, it's evident. The mom just, like, gives her shit the whole time.
One question I do have, she's narrating this movie, right?
Yeah, as an older person, yeah.
So it just sounds like there's another piece to the story that's missing. So, Tim, did you read the book?
I did not.
Okay.
Or I'm interested to.
If you would know, because the way that she describes the events in the past tense, it sounds like Marty died.
I know in the book, Marty doesn't.
But at least not through the course of events.
Yeah, it makes it sound like eventually something else happened.
Yeah.
Because it ends on such like a bittersweet note that you're like, oh, that seems kind of weird to just be like, that's how I'm going to end a story just a story I told.
Yeah.
It is a strange, like, Stand By Me device that doesn't seem to be necessary, really.
Like, I I liked the narration. The only thing I think was kind of weird is the fact that it was used so sparsely and sporadically.
Yeah.
That it was like started a narration in the beginning, and then like at some point, like two quarters in, one half, I'll reduce my fractions. So like one half of the movie, it ends up doing a little bit more narration, and then at the very end, you have like 2 lines of narration before the credits roll. So I like the narration in general, but I just feel like it was used sporadically, so it ends up making it seem jarring when it happens.
Yeah, I definitely was taken out when she speaks off screen, like, oh yeah, that narration from the beginning. Okay. Just comes back in and I'm like, why? But
you just hear her narrating, Marty whips his head around. What is that?
Like Stranger Than Fiction. Like, what?
And then Marty was a werewolf. Don't say that. So yeah, we have Jane, which in the book, to my knowledge, from what I read, Jane is Kate, I believe, and she doesn't have a huge role in the book. It seems like most of the action was done with Marty. Like, Marty did there was no bottle deposit thing. Marty ended up finding out Reverend Lowe was the one who got the eye shot. Marty was the one who started sending the letters, like, by himself. Marty was the one who, like, talked to Uncle Red. So I think they might have added her in just to add a little bit more for him to play off of as a second character. But I'll need to read the book after this, because now I'm curious, because it's something I've always skipped over as a kid. But now I kind of want to read it just to see the comparisons.
Yeah, her character and level of involvement made sense for the movie, but I still just like was confused at why we had to have a narrator from her perspective. I don't know. Just strange to me.
Yeah. We'll do it like As I Lay Dying. It'll be a different narrator for each part of the movie.
Yeah. I did like her, though. She did a good job.
I talked it up as a trope of just Stephen King's.
That's true, because if you think about it, Morgan Freeman in Shawshank narrating that, then you have the narration in like Stand By Me. It seems a lot of the narration things there. And I don't know if that's just something that he specifically wrote, or when he did the script for this one, or if it was something they just felt added to it. So yeah. So we end up meeting Marty, her brother, who is handicapped. He's unable to use his legs, so he ends up getting a lot of kind of special attention from the parents. They have her kind of work with him a lot, help him out a lot, get him places, which ends up kind of frustrating Jane. Marty kind of feels bad about it too, which we'll see throughout the movie. But they seem to have a good relationship despite kind of being the frustrations there. And then we meet Brady, Marty's friend, as they have Brady up in a tree with a snake. And then as Jane comes over, they surprise her with the snake, so she falls down and rips her the stockings. And then when she tries to get back up, Brady throws the snake at her and says,
"Look alive!" Hey, Jane, you wet your pants?
And then she falls in the mud. And I don't want to spoil anything, but Brady got exactly what he deserved.
He was kind of a prick.
Well, sure looks like we got our goat that time, didn't we? Shut up, Brady. You're warped.
Totally fair and even exchange of violence here.
You know, growing up, I always felt like I was a bit of an outcast, and, you know, I never felt I fit in with the rest of my, class growing up. But at never any point did I feel I was bullied to that extreme. Yeah. And as a child of the 80s as well, like, this was during, like, the 80s when I was super young, and the same thing with, like, early 90s, whatever. But still, like, we didn't go through anything like that. That's borderline, like, I'm going to call the cops on you harassment.
So I think this has been part of my ongoing problem. Like, I like Stephen King's work. It's great. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like any of the bullies in Stephen King's books and his movies, things like that, they can't just be normal bullies. They have to be like ratcheted up to 11 bullies. Like in It can't just be they pick on a kid. Yeah, they have to like pull out a switchblade and carve their name into a kid, or it's like all of these really intense bullying situations. This one, all intents and purposes, is kind of tame for Stephen King, but still, it's
Why
like
can't
really.
it just be online and say like you look fat today? Like, and that's the level of bullying we get. No.
I mean,
It's
that's
okay,
essentially
the,
what Marty did to Reverend Lowe.
Yeah. The Twitter posts will come later.
Yeah. See an updated Silver Bullet where Marty instead just cyberbullies Reverend Lowe instead of
Yeah, I'm
sending
gonna say
his
we'll find
letters.
out that Marty is the bully in this movie.
Yeah, he was awful quick to come up with that idea there. He's probably like, I already have these letters. We just have to change the name.
I laughed out loud when I saw that letter.
Oh, that was a hearty laugh. That wasn't like I breathed a little harder out of my nose laugh. That was a full on bellow.
a guffaw.
Guffaw.
Oh yeah.
We'll get to it.
So Brady is the worst. He ends up knocking her down into the mud. He laughs. And then Jane gets upset and she ends up leaving. And then even Marty kind of shows remorse on this. And he ends up telling Brady that he's twisted. And Brady, being a psychopath, shows no emotion. So Jane is kind of walking off in a huff. And she looks through bushes and she sees an argument between this woman who says she's pregnant and the guy that she says is the father. And he is saying that it is not his baby and to get away from him and get out of here. And he says,
Sorry, babe.
I have to have some help. I don't
It's
know
your
what to
oven,
do.
but it ain't my bun. You got bacon in there, huh?
Yeah,
Which-
I wrote that line in my notes
what
too.
class?
I was
What
more
kind-
horror stricken thinking that was Jane's parents because I wasn't fully sure of like who was who.
Jeez.
Oh man.
So it just seemed like a perfect opportunity for her to be upset in the bushes trying to clean herself up and then seeing her parents arguing like in the corner and like, yeah, that ain't my kid. Like, holy fuck, and she's adopted? Or like, and her mom's like screwing around or whatever. Like, I
No,
didn't take the
yeah.
argument like that.
The dad's. It's like, no,
And
you
at
must
that
have screwed
point-
some other guy. I'll see you later.
At
Yeah.
that point, Reverend Lowe is doing favors out there.
I
He just
figured
I-
slip a little
It's his
extra
view.
money in the collection at Sunday service and being like, yeah, here's a name.
I thought he was a righteous, like a self-righteous, like werewolf. Like he only kills people. Yeah, like yeah, he kills people, but he does it like in a sick way, like Jigsaw did in the Saw movies. Like, oh, you have a drinking problem, so I'm gonna
very
just
much-
like drown you in alcohol. In this case, he's just gonna rip the guy's head off. But still,
Right. I disagree with his choices, if that's his game.
So yeah, we'll cover it a bit later. But when he says like he saved somebody's soul from hell because he killed them before they can kill themselves, great. That's one. What was the explanation on all the rest of them?
drinking
that's
on the
pretty
job. I did
Yeah.
feel like that trope has been overused a lot with like the battered house of the drunk dad and always like the Jenny and Forrest Gump kind of thing, because all that was missing from that whole thing with
Was a
what's her
werewolf?
name, Kate?
Oh, what in Silver Bullet?
Yeah,
Jane.
no, not the sister. His like
The woman who got
girlfriend.
knocked up?
No.
Oh,
the
young girl.
yeah, Marty's
The-
friend. I
yeah.
don't remember her name. I think it might have been Kate.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, so her dad, the only thing missing from that
Right.
equation was like on-screen like physical or sexual abuse or something for that righteousness to continue,
Right.
for the werewolf to be killing people.
Right.
Yeah. Which the father in that seemed like an amalgam of Stephen King and Rob Zombie favorite like character tropes of like white trash, day drinking, watching wrestling, screaming at people kind of character.
I mean, he was just a dumb drunk, but he seemed pretty harmless.
He had a bone
I could
to
be
pick
wrong.
with the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Damn cripple. Always end up on welfare.
Yeah, I was gonna say he made a lot of rude remarks to Marty about being handicapped.
Oh, that's
Being a
true, but
cripple.
So yeah, he might not be understanding.
I mean, not much has changed over the last 30 years, but
I believe he wanted to electrocute anybody with a disability to save them from welfare and balance the national debt.
I'll electrocute them all. Balance a goddamn budget.
I think that might have been
Those
a
were-
Christmas Carol.
Those were his words. He's a great guy. This town is
Verbatim.
filled with really great people.
I mean, some of them are.
Some of them, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Some of them are, some of them aren't. Like Humanity.
That's Anytown.
Yeah.
You're right.
Anytown, USA.
But the bad apples really are really rotten apples.
They spoil the bunch? Spoil the barrel? I forget.
I guess not.
So they, after seeing this this wonderful back and forth between this couple, they decide to head home. This is when I like how usually in movies, whenever there's a driver, they're not paying attention to the road. They're like joining the conversation, turning around in their seat, like sitting in the back seat having a conversation, nobody at the wheel. I like how the father actually kept his eyes on the road and just let the wife talk to them in the back seat while they were, Jane was complaining that Marty keeps kind of getting the special treatment and everything that happened to her, and the mother's getting upset that you have to be understanding of your brother and all of this stuff. So they're kind of arguing, and the father's just actually like glancing left, glancing right, looking in his mirrors, and like, looks like you're actually driving here. This is very nice. It's refreshing.
I appreciated that big time.
It's my weirdest, biggest pet peeve in shows and movies when it's a car scene and somebody will be talking and the driver will turn to their side for like 40 minutes and just have a conversation or like turn around, and it's like, come on, at least act like you're driving.
There's I don't know if you heard of this newer movie called Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, but it's a very wacky comedy. But long story short, somebody's talking to this little kid. He's like driving a submarine, and he's driving it very typically, like where he's got his hands on the wheel, and they're just constantly going like nonstop. Like you wouldn't in a car, you just kind of keep your hands in one spot. The wheel wouldn't move. And she's like instructing him. She's like, remember, lots of little tiny left to right movements as you're driving. And it just, they're calling out that trope. My guess is they shot that scene and the kid was doing that, and they probably just wrote that in as like a joke. But yeah, I love when it's they add the realism to the driving.
Yeah. So I like it even better when they do that thing of like they look away in the conversation, and then when they get hit by an obvious oncoming car or something like that, it's like, well, that at least makes sense. So I do like how even though kind of Jane feels like the backup kid to Marty here, they do still have that good relationship, because when they get out of the car, Jane starts to go inside, and then I think it was the father or the mother ends up saying like, come back and help him get out of the car. And then she has to get out his wheelchair and kind of help him into the wheelchair and then bring him inside. And they're talking about his Uncle Red, which at this point we haven't met him, but they kind of set it up that Uncle Red is kind of a screw up. He evidently is on like his 4th divorce or something like that. He has a drinking problem, but Marty still looks up to him. So it's kind of disappointing to him to be told. So Jane kind of, I don't know, takes almost like a little bit of a pleasure in telling him that he's getting divorced again. He's kind of a failure, only because she knows that he looks up to him. Right. Or I don't know if it's just a case of she is accepting of the fact that it's a disappointment. So to her, it's just like, yep, we already knew this.
She's definitely doing it out of spite because she's like pissed off about the whole day. Because she apologizes about it later in the next scene.
I like their relationship dynamic because she fucking hated Marty a lot. But at the same time, you can tell there's that sibling love for each other. And I appreciated that quite a bit. Because there were some scenes where she was ready to fucking kill him. If the werewolf was in the room and she had one gun with one bullet, one gun with 2 bullets, she'd probably shoot her brother twice. Like that much resentment was given for him.
I don't know if I felt that strongly.
She was fucking pissed a couple of times, man. Like,
because Marty never seemed to be like an agitator or instigator. He was like very sorry for what happened.
I believe that the indifference of good men make them evil. So despite how he was like, I'm the good child, I'm not going to say anything, she's getting reamed by her mother because she's like, he does no wrong. And he doesn't say anything through that entire conversation. I felt that was...
I see it.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I'm the good child. Oh, the other kid is getting yelled at. Like, I'm just going to sit here and not say anything. He could have said something. He could have, but he didn't.
Yeah, so he's not actively, like, mean or bad to her, but I guess he doesn't defend her or speak up at all.
I did appreciate, like, later that night, when when she gets the wheelchair for him, like just the look on her face, like I swear he could have killed him right then and there on the spot. And you see her, wheel him up the ramp and all that. But later that night, when he sneaks in her bedroom, yeah, that's right. That's right. She's like, "Here's your chair." And she just like, yeah.
She leaves him to roll up the ramp by himself, and he struggles. He's like, he can't get up.
I like how they ask her to help him on all of these things, and then later we'll see him climb out of his bed, climb out of his window, down a vine trellis.
Yeah,
oh, that bothered me so much.
He's got some upper body strength on that kid.
Yeah.
Imagine him gym class just doing 50 chin-ups at like the physical. Like, wow,
that
Marty.
point where we have to climb the rope in the gym, in the gymnasium. Like he's the only one that can do it at age like what, 10, 12?
All on his forearm and like shoulder strength.
Yep.
Let's not gloss over the fact that he has a regular house wheelchair, but out on the streets, he's got a 250cc engine in his wheelchair.
Yeah, I never knew that. Like, I figured they probably had motorized wheelchairs, thinking about it. Like, they're all electric now, which makes a ton of sense. But back then, they probably had to be motorized. But I never thought of anyone actually having that.
I think Gary Busey just straight up, like, pimped his ride, like West Coast Custom his wheelchair. Like,
it's like a Dominic Toretto wheelchair.
something family, something quarter mile at a time.
Can we now get a remake of Silver Bullet with Vin Diesel as Uncle Red?
Not even, just like it's still the kid, but he's now grown up now, and he's like, hold on, I know a guy that could help us, and it's the fucking kid years later.
I feel like Dom immediately
Vin Diesel
would
is Marty.
He's what?
Vin Diesel as Marty. But all the rest of the characters are age appropriate.
He got his walking back. I overcame that shit. I was thinking if Dom was Uncle Red, he would have believed him immediately about the werewolf, and they would have made many silver bullets and went out on a hunt right away. He would not have second guessed that. Let's go kick this werewolf's ass.
When we were talking about Marty kind of having the nice scene with Jane, I think this is what you were getting into, Nick, when he snuck back into the room.
Yeah, he snuck back into the room, and like during that whole altercation at the park, her pantyhose ripped, and he genuinely did feel bad. And this is part of the indifference shit that like he could have done this out in the open instead of in private, but the thought still was touching. But he ended up like giving her money while she was trying to sleep and leaving it on the bed to kind of like in turn pay for the ripped pantyhose that happened. And she ends up waking up and she's like, "Oh, what's the money for?" And that was really sweet of him, and it was pretty like, "Oh, is this enough for what broke?" I thought I did like that. He could have done that publicly, but whatever. I mean, he's the good guy in the movie, so I guess I gotta accept that.
Yeah, and then they have kind of a little bit more heartfelt conversation about Uncle Red rather than what she kind of just shot at him earlier, which throughout the entire movie, like, it's seeing this relationship and then the ending narration, I think it really makes it set it up like, what happens to Marty after the end of this movie?
Yeah, that's why it threw me off. I was like, I think you just could have done away with it. Just had this little
It could have been, I was thinking about that, and it could have just been kind of Steven's way of preparing for a possible sequel. Like, that's his jumping off point, so that there'll be more narrations, and that if the werewolves end up coming back for whatever reason, Marty could be there to basically reprise his role from the Lost Boys kind of thing, but with werewolves this time.
I think it was at one point Marty might have gotten scratched by Reverend Lowe, and then directly following that Halloween, he transforms, and then Uncle Red has to shoot him.
I could see that.
I'd watch that.
Maybe they make a pact that if the werewolf ever comes back when they're adults, they'll come back to town.
30 years later.
Take care of them.
They'll send somebody in their place.
Steven, I feel like I've read this already.
Control F, dairy, replace with Tarker's Mill.
Replace clown with werewolf.
Thanks, Clippy.
Replace leper with werewolf. Replace. She got a pair of pantyhose for $1.49. That's a great deal. Shows you how
Yeah,
much.
apparently.
I thought he put down like $6.
Well,
I think it was like
he
two
said
and change.
she only took what she needed. She was like, it's only $1.49, and she left some money on
right.
the table. Literally.
Right. Exact change.
Just leaving money
I
on the
thought that-
table.
Yeah.
The thought that counts, but he needs the receipt back.
It's an expense. So we jump from their little delicate moment over to outside of this house while there's a woman downstairs playing piano or organ or whatever it is. And we go upstairs to find the pregnant woman from the fair who's talking to the other classy gentleman about the being pregnant with a
Baby mama situation, yeah.
Pouring out a bunch of pills, ready to punch her own ticket here.
You
And-
know, the red pill means that she's going to be leaving the Matrix. The blue pill is when you stay. So she is looking to get out of the Matrix as soon as possible.
She really wanted to leave the Matrix. There were a lot of
Oh, yeah.
red pills.
So we get another POV from a creature at this point from outside, approaching the house and then climbing the vine trellis very stealthily. Which, again, great use of all of this, just with the fact that I like these quick flashes and whatnot. And then it builds it up to you get this, the werewolf bursting through the window. You still don't see him clearly. You just still get these like quick scenes here and there. But another scene that was very short on the TV edition, and here we actually have the full werewolf attack, and it's like rending flesh and like knocking this woman around.
Yeah, it was actually terrifying. Like, it was actually a scary scene.
Because it honestly felt like a wild animal, like a bear attack. Because it's just
Right.
you see swipes of claws and people getting like opened up, and you just hear the snarling and whatnot. And
Yeah.
it's rough. It's for not seeing the werewolf, it's a good scene to just kind of see this here. It's still, the whole thing kind of reminded me of a very Jaws-like feel of here's kind of the build up, and then really high like violence against somebody, and
Yeah.
then we just dip back away because the mother downstairs or whoever it is grabs a gun and runs upstairs to find no werewolf but the girl dead in the bed.
Well, she took her time.
She did. Well, it's
I mean, he that werewolf really did a number on that girl. Like
she opens a door and it's daylight.
Yeah. But no, like she gets really, really torn up from that attack. But in the time, he had plenty of time to plot every swipe, basically.
I know. I don't know. Maybe it's a trope that like the person who's being a shithead like usually gets theirs quicker or right away. In this case, that was not the scenario, because the poor girl who got pregnant, you know, she was knocked up and the guy denied her. She's the one that gets killed. That guy gets away scot-free. Like, he doesn't die. He's still living after this movie's over.
No
And,
justice, even in Silver
that
Bullet.
poor girl was like suicidal, and she still gets a terrible end. It's like, damn, Stephen King.
Yeah, that's what's kind of, and I know they probably
No
did that
personal
specifically
justice.
so he can do his whole thing, private justice, so he can do his whole
Private
thing later on. Why don't you go up to Harmony Hill, dig up what's left of my boy Brady, and lecture him on private justice?
Private justice.
Private justice.
Private justice.
Private justice.
Private justice.
So,
Put
yeah,
him
no
back
private
together
justice.
in a Frankenstein's monster kind of way.
Wait for a storm, let him get struck by lightning, and bring him back here. So, yeah, it's probably just a setup so he can do the whole bit later on how he did it
Right.
to save her soul. Because it's kind of
Again,
ruins
although
that
we only had
speech
the
when he
one
just goes and
example.
kills that other guy. I killed him because he was kind of a schmuck. I saved his soul. So after this happens, we jump over to Sheriff Joe Halloran and the deputy at the sheriff's station. He's talking with some sort of federal agents about the murder or whatever the case is there. And then we see the deputy later that night at the local bar where we meet a guy whose actual name I found was Andy. I called him Mutton Chops for years, but he has these very like Irish dock worker mutton chops.
Like Civil War facial hair.
Yeah. But he's running his mouth at the bar about the ineffectiveness of the police force, which at this point, I always was like, this guy is just the worst. And then, Nick, you make a good point. No, the police force are kind of terrible in this movie.
They really are.
They're bad at their jobs. They're very ineffective.
I did like that guy got called out. He's like, as I recall, like you didn't pay your taxes and you're here complaining about taxpayer money.
Yeah, because Mutton Chop Andy was like,
we pay our taxes to keep this town safe. And Joe Haller ain't doing it.
Last town report said you were in arrears in your taxes, Andy. Guess you caught up, huh?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, the public records show you didn't pay any taxes, you son of a bitch. That was funny to me.
But the potential fight gets broken up by the bartender with his Peacemaker baseball bat.
That was
never comes back.
Right.
I didn't notice that. That actually
that guy
makes
was
a lot
awesome.
more sense now.
Yeah.
His like attitude and his line was just like funny to me. He's like, you guys need to cool your thermostats or get the hell out of here.
What if he didn't give a warning? Lines. He just swung.
I let Peacemaker do the talking.
Public records show you didn't pay taxes, Andy, and he just gets him like Al Capone in The Untouchables at the dinner scene.
There'll be no government evasion in my bar.
So at this point, we end up going back to Marty after school. We meet a girl who is a friend of his that we will never really see again. They are friends in the class. They pass the house where the attack happened. She talks about how she's kind of afraid of the whole thing. It upsets her. Marty is very understanding about it. And then when they get to her house, she kind of explains that the like greenhouse shed area out back by hers, she's kind of doubly frightened for the fact that she's hearing noises out of it. And the attack happened up the road. At which point we meet the father, which is, in very Stephen King fashion, not a great father, which wouldn't be a Stephen King movie if we didn't have one terrible father. And this is where, as Dean mentioned before, he's a piece of work.
He was really good at that guy that played that role. Like I just believe that, like, oh, that's him all the time. Like that's just like he's just an asshole. He just like played it very well.
Actually, like that's a good point, which never crossed my mind. It's like that guy. It's not like he came fully formed from Stephen King's head. He's playing that role, and for me to look at it and be like, "What a schmuck!" He's doing a good job in the role. It's just Stephen King's writing as that character is a little heavy-handed. It's like, yeah, we get it. We're not supposed to like this guy.
Right. Yeah, kill off.
And he walks inside, he like kicks two puppies or something.
Would be surprised.
Just for good measure.
Yeah, it's like he's hamming it up, but at the same time, it's like I believe that person exists. Like even outside of this movie, there's somebody like that in the world.
Yeah. The main thing I've learned growing older over the years is watching this and being like, yeah, it seems a little outlandish, and then realizing, oh no, there's definitely people exactly like that out there. So on the way home, Marty stops for gas at the local station, which, if my main mode of transportation was this like gas-powered wheelchair, I would not run it to fumes to the point where he's like trying to eke out the last so he can roll into the gas station. I feel like you would need better planning than that.
I don't know. I do that every 2 weeks. I don't like going to the gas station. I just want to go home. It takes 30 miles to get to work, and I got 27 miles left in my tank. So I'm like, how far can I get, really? I don't know. Let's
just get a gallon at least. Just get a gallon.
Yeah, I do.
The way home.
Get an electric car. Get a Tesla.
I should. I want one. Elon, please sponsor me.
Got to sell that ad space. His wheelchair, it could definitely hold like a half gallon or something of gas, like backup gas. Like, oh shit, get me to the gas station gas. He should plan ahead. Because that comes back to almost literally bite him in the ass later.
He's kind of reckless with his bike, though. I wouldn't trust him riding around with a gallon of gas just like sticking off to the side.
Yeah.
That's actually how Reverend Lowe originally was going to get him. He put sugar in his gas tank.
No, he was going to shoot the gas tank and it would explode.
Mythbusters taught us that doesn't work, though.
I know. They shot at a propane tank, though, I think.
Runs up, puts a rag in it, lights it on fire.
Yeah, he just... It was just like... I don't know if that was supposed to show us just that he will run his tank to empty, because you just get a little bit of the gas attendant just has fun with him.
Hey, Mr. Kotz.
Well, Marty, I see you lucked out again.
Yep. Would you fill her up, please?
Want me to check the oil?
Yeah, sure.
Wipe the windshield and check the driver's bullshit level?
Yeah,
And
which
then that's it.
I don't know. It might have been part that they wanted to show or set up that, yeah, he's kind of oblivious to keeping track of it. Or also it might just be like they wanted to give a little bit more time to just having him interact with townsfolk just to kind of, because it was a nice scene of just them, because it's like, oh yeah, like,
Right.
not everybody in this town is terrible. This guy seems super nice to him. Like, they joke around
Right.
and whatnot. And then also, like, he comes up later. He's one of the people when they go out into the woods, which I think he's one of the ones that doesn't die
Correct.
during the woods attack.
He makes
But
it
it's, yeah, but at what cost?
$1.
So we end up going to back to Marty's house, and this is when we finally meet Uncle Red. They're sitting there playing cards.
I thought the kid was drinking with Gary Busey. When they both drank, he's drinking like some kind of soda pop, as whatever it would be back then, like Pepsi in a glass bottle, and then he's obviously Red's obviously drinking, like Wild Turkey. I thought they were both drinking like heavy stuff.
He's got a glass Coke bottle that he's sitting on the table. Yeah, if you look quickly, it's a Guinness. It's Guinness colored.
Whenever I'm sick or whatever, I have a cold and my voice is hoarse and I'm around my brother, the easiest way to make him laugh is I do all of Gary Busey's lines from this one scene. Like
Do you tell the joke?
He always calls me that. Yeah.
Hey, there's a guy sitting in the bar. The bartender says, "Hey, jackass, give me a drink." So the bartender pours him a drink. He drinks it. Sits there for a while. Says, "Hey, jackass, pour me another drink." So he pours another drink. The guy gets up and leaves. The guy that's sitting there says, "Hey, why do you let him call you jackass all the time?" The bartender says, "Oh, he always calls me that." It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Time again, I say can't bet managers. Like, all of his lines in that, like, hoarse Gary Busey voice, it's just comedy gold. So this is where I think, like, when Gary Busey comes in, it's, again, a shame that everybody over the years thinks of him as a bit of a punchline when seeing him act and stuff like this, which at first you kind of see Uncle Red. They set him up earlier as Uncle Red is just the failure. He's a drunk. He's had a bunch of ex-wives, like all of this. And then to see him with Marty and he's kind of laughing. But that one scene where Marty gets into the chair to call it a night and he goes upstairs and Uncle Red's making faces at him and laughing. And as soon as Marty gets out of sight, you see his face change because it's like he's putting on this act to be fun around Marty just because he knows that Marty needs that in his life. And then he kind of goes back to the, yeah, like I know what that kid's going through kind of deal look on his face.
I really appreciated him in this. He struck me as the type that everyone looked at Marty as a kid in the wheelchair, and I felt like Red was the only one that tried to look past that.
I don't want you drinking around Marty.
Don't be telling me what to do. You've been telling me what to do all my life.
Red, I don't care how you live, but he is a very impressionable little boy.
You know, you think your only responsibility is getting his butt out of the chair and into the tub and out of the chair and onto the toilet. And you ought to realize there's more to Marty than him not being able to walk.
Like, every gift that he gave him seemed to try to go beyond, like, yes, he bought him, like, or he probably made him the Silver Bullet Mark I. And then obviously Silver Bullet Mark II was given to him by Red, so we know that he was the one that did it. But he just wants to, like, I get that you can't feel your legs, but at least this will let you experience the world more in the way that we can because you can't. And I always appreciated that.
I think as a kid, I always overlooked this scene just because I was looking for get me back to the werewolf kind of stuff. But the argument that then happens between the mother and Uncle Red, who's like brother-sister kind of deal, it ends up being a great exchange between them there. And it's, I feel like a good kind of acting moment between the two of them, just because they seem like they're also siblings. They're both frustrated, and both of them have good points that they're coming from in terms of, as he said, Uncle Red sees that Marty is more than just his disability. The mother also is making the point of like, it's because you just roll in every so often. You're not here with him day to day. So it's like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's fun. But also there's a lot to kind of take care of and make sure he's taken care of, because I don't know, maybe once they're gone or something like that, they worry about Marty.
So easy for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You blow in here once a month, and you tell a few jokes, and you have a few beers, and then you want to lecture me about how to raise my son. Well, I am the one who is responsible for how he feels when he sees you like this, and how he feels when you leave.
Which this is where, as he said, like Uncle Red ends up making the case that he's more than that. They're treating him that way, so of course he's going to end up like acting that way, and that it seems like she's already just given up, or that Marty's already given up.
Red, Marty has enough strikes against him as it is.
He doesn't have any strikes against him.
That I am scared to death that someday he is just going to give up.
He's not going to give up.
Well, he doesn't need you showing him how to do it.
Which was kind of a harsh dig, but probably accurate, seeing as he's so far supposedly like only shown up drunk here and there.
I feel he tries to curb it a little bit too after this, because this was the most drunk that we'd seen him, and it was pretty clear that after she yells at him, "Please don't drink in front of my son," you can tell that he actually did try to.
Yeah, because I think this was the rest of the movie for the most part, other than like the scene when they call him and he like wakes up in bed and there's like a bottle of Wild Turkey next to his nightstand. Other than that, when he's with Marty at like the family barbecue, when he's with them when they're doing like the bullet later, it's just normal Uncle Red. It's not like day drinking Uncle Red kind of deal.
Yeah,
which we'll see a bit later in terms of, I think it's at one of the funerals. Uncle Red has his flask with him, but just seeing the rest of the family there, he decides to just like put it back. So I have the girl who was a friend of Marty's. I have the scene listed as back to the Trash Father house. So we jump back to this because this is how it's been going so far. We end up having a scene with the family. We have a scene of a murder. We have the scene of the family. We're back to having a scene of the murder. So the father is like 6 beers in, sitting there watching wrestling of some sort. And I don't know why this line always stuck out in my head as a kid.
This is the best line in the whole movie.
Do you want to say it?
Oh, it hurts my parts.
That's the one.
I wrote that too. I wrote that in my notes too.
My God.
I remember hearing it even as a kid and being like,
I want to use that in just actual day-to-day conversation. Like, that's a great line.
Oh, that hurts my parts.
Even the way he's talking to himself, like watching wrestling, like that, I know that's real. Like that exists. Like I've seen that, and it's he plays it perfectly, just like that whole thing. His whole scene, all of his stuff is great. Just how terrible he is. It's all entertaining and good to me.
And John, we've got a very exciting match. We have one of the young lions in there, Brian Adidas. Come on, Rebel! We're gonna bust him up tonight. We're gonna kick some ass. We're gonna kick some ass. Ow!
Oh, my parts.
hurts my parts. So he ends up hearing a noise outside. So this is when he, being the drunk father that he is, he grabs a shotgun to head outside, which this will go great. So he ends up heading into the shed that's connected over to like the greenhouse or something. And I don't know what this guy does for a living, because every shot they show in this like shed, it's just like shelves and shelves of pots.
So 2 things. As he's walking in, I thought it was pretty cool how this reminded me of E.T. when Elliot meets E.T. for the first time.
They end very differently.
Yes. And I thought it was just clever because Carlo Rambaldi did the effects work for E.T. and he helped design the creature, or at least like bring him to life kind of thing. And I thought that was like, I wonder if that was a subtle homage to that.
Because do you remember which one came out first? Because I still to this day have never seen E.T. but I don't remember when it came out. So it might have been either that
1980.
was after.
82.
It was 1980. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
82.
That was early then.
Oh, 82?
June,
I thought it was 80.
June 11th, 1982.
Oh, so yeah. So this was definitely after E.T.
But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. Like maybe a little subtle nod. I mean, it wasn't like carbon copy, you could tell, but it was just subtle enough that some of the shots reminded me of it. Just the structure of the way that the shed was. It reminded me anyway. Like, hey, what's that weird noise that's coming from the shed going over? And yeah, they definitely kind of parted ways in terms of similarity pretty harshly. But then the other thing that I didn't understand was that you're right about the fact that he was growing plants, but when you look at all of the plants in his greenhouse and in the shed, like, what the fuck is he growing? Because it just looked like they wanted to kill him in a jungle environment, so he was just surrounded by jungle plants.
He actually grew all of the scenery for Predator.
Yeah. Yeah. And why is there a basement in the shed?
Yeah. Because I just wonder, it's like, this guy does not strike me as a florist, so I don't know why he has all of these, like, tiny terracotta pots everywhere.
He was
in that
upset
shed.
about them being smashed, too.
Yeah.
It'd make more sense if it was a more modern tale where he was probably just a grow house for weed.
Yeah.
But none of those plants look like weed.
I just thought that shack looked like about 10 by 12, and yet it seems like it's a big greenhouse when he goes inside. Like he's walking through that thing for a long time.
It's bigger on the inside.
Yeah.
It's one of those TARDIS sheds.
Trash Father was a Time Lord. So yeah, the father florist of some sort. I like how we do the eye reveal of the werewolf looking out of the plants, just because nowadays I feel like so many things are jump scares, and they even used the jump scares back then and whatnot. But I like how here you don't get that like very loud stinger when all of a sudden they just show the eyes looking out. It's like a softer sound cue to it. So it's not really meant to be a jump. It's just kind of a nice touch to it, which then ends up with the werewolf, first of all, shaking the entire building. I have no idea what he can be doing from down underneath it, that he's able to shake the entire shack by himself.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something I feel like he just wrote in because they wanted to and not because it really made any sense.
Yeah, which then he bursts out of the ground, or rather he bursts like his arm out of the ground to pull the guy down, and we end up having him get impaled on a board. This is another one that was not in the TV edit.
That was also hilarious. Just the way that he was essentially killed, not by the werewolf, but that conveniently placed board. It was pretty gruesome.
Well, this is why the police, when they checked the next day, said it was clearly a accident.
Big ass accident.
It's a greenhouse accident. See him all the time in Tarker's Mill. That guy got beheaded at the train tracks. Accident. That woman took pills and something. Accident. I don't know how they explained that one. I think that's the only one that the police force at this point was like, no, this is a murder.
Those pills really did a number on this young lady.
So this is when the sheriff actually starts a curfew following this, because we get to the next day. The sheriff is doing a curfew. You're seeing everybody kind of start pulling in early into the night. So like the parents are pulling their kids inside. We have Marty and Brady up at the park doing their kites, which I like how we see Marty up in a tree trying to get his kite down while his friend is down there still flying his kite. If my friend didn't have the use of his legs and his kite got stuck in a tree, I wouldn't be like, you can get it, I'm busy. Be a good friend.
This is where we
up there
piss
and
off
grab
his upper body strength. Like he just pulls himself up into that tree.
Just like these wiry, rippling shoulder muscles.
This kid is jacked. Chris Redfield, when he trained to punch that boulder, trained from this guy. That's how much upper body strength this kid has.
Well, I like how instead of climbing the tree, he grabs the trunk and bends it so he can grab his kite.
But his friend at this point, I guess, I don't have the actual lines that he says, but my notes flat out say, like, yeah, this kid's next to die. He's just being a complete fucking douchebag.
Well, so at this point, like the Jane shows up because she says it's dinner time. They've been looking, which didn't cross my mind until now. How tough was it in the pre-cell phone date? Like, I didn't have a cell phone growing up until I think like middle of high school, but I don't remember early on. If you go hang out with friends somewhere, it must be tough to be like, tell them to come home, it's time for dinner. How? How do you get a hold of them? Unless you physically go there, you have to work on the honor system.
This is also more why I sympathize with Jane a lot, because she said that she's the one that got yelled at because he wasn't home for dinner.
Brady, I got it. Great. Marty Claus, how you get out of that tree? Supper was ready an hour ago, Dumbo. Oh, jeez. I forgot. She mad? Yeah, at me for not finding you sooner.
Yeah.
Like, why is she getting yelled at? Like, he's out playing, doing whatever the fuck. Why is she the one that's responsible for him? Like, he's your son.
Yeah. Because I feel like this isn't even necessarily a case of Marty being in the wrong. It's like, no, your parents are handling this entire situation poorly.
I want to know why Brady is so enamored with the kite that he wanted to stay there until fucking like 9 o'clock at night flying this kite.
You going home, Brady? No, I'm going to close this place down.
Like, I figure after you can't really see the kite anymore, you're like, I think I should go home. Nope, he stays out late enough to get brutally murdered.
Well, I like how... So, first of all, this is the first time I noticed when Marty climbs back into his wheelchair, he has a push to start. Fancy. But I like how they then... He's like...
Hey, Brady, you coming? In a while.
And then they do this, like, pensive look on Corey Haim's face as he just watches him from the distance. And then they cut back to Brady flying his kite. And then they cut back to Corey Haim just sitting there, kind of just looking at him. And then they cut back to him flying the kite. And it's like, no foreshadowing. This kid's going to be fine.
I thought it almost like, I think it was unintentional, but it seemed like are they trying to make Marty look like he's jealous, like that, or mad that his friend won't come with him home or something? Because the look on Corey Haim's face was almost like his brow was a little furrowed, just kind of staring at him like having fun there while he has to go home.
The IMDb trivia said that apparently this shot was meant to signify Marty feeling this was the last time he was going to see his friend, which I think is little bullshit, but I mean...
I think it was Marty telepathically summoning the werewolf.
Kill this asshole that won't get the kite down
coordinates
out of the tree.
The town is like passing the hat, sending over a collection to Reverend Lowe. Brady.
That kid ran over my cockroaches. He killed them all.
My one cockroach in my cockroach farm. It was just starting. It would have gone places. So
I paid $100 for that cockroach.
So nothing happens to Brady, and he lives a long, successful life. So we go back to the bar.
Starts a kite business. I don't know how.
So we go back to the bar, and this is the beginning of a character who provides all of the lines that my brother and I quote to this day whenever we see each other. They're back at the bar, and they're kind of doing the same thing of people kind of arguing, and then this middle-aged man walks in a suit, and he says,
"Has anybody in here seen my son, Brady?"
And so we cut over to the sheriff up at where the park was, and he finds Brady. We never see Brady. In the book, to my knowledge, I think he gets like decapitated and disemboweled. We never see Brady here. So the bloody smiley face kite.
I have to say I was really like on the edge of my seat, so to speak. Like, are they going to show this or not? Like, I really didn't know if they were going to do like a quick cut of like Brady's dead body or not.
Growing up on the TV edit, where it's the scene of like when the father sees and he just looks and he does and he makes like his noises. I thought, oh boy, if I saw this on the TV edit, I don't know if there's another cut scene when I watched this the first time, and then there wasn't. I was like, oh, okay, so they just never show this. It wasn't like a cut thing.
Right.
Is there like a stipulation in movies where you can't show children dead?
I don't
You definitely see you definitely see it.
I mean, I think it might be a faux pas.
Right. I mean, like Hereditary comes to mind.
Yeah, Hereditary.
Nothing modern.
Feast 2, Terrified.
Okay. Modern, I don't know. Non-modern, I don't know.
Like from the 80s, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. There might be. I mean, there very well could be, but off the top of my head, I can't think of any on-screen depictions of a child dead in the case of like a mauling or something like that.
If you're listening, write us with your dead children scenes. We'll compile them.
The only one that comes to mind is, I forgot, I think it was Lucio Fulci, Don't Torture a Duckling, that the entire thing was about like a rash of child killings in a town, and then all the townsfolk like hunting somebody down that they think is the killer, who may or may not be innocent. But that's the only one that comes to mind. But I mean, the exact plot was about child murders. So that's your thing, I guess. Check out Don't Torture Duckling. No, it's a good movie, but it's, if you're into kind of the, I want to say it was like late 70s, early 80s. But yeah, it's a good one.
Trying to figure out who the werewolf was actually was a little fun. I was trying to do that through the whole movie, trying to start placing my guess. Like it was boiled down to like Red or the priest.
Oh, that would have been rough if it was Uncle Red.
Yeah, because it was just trying to place, like, it's gonna be someone close to Marty in some kind of way. That's the only, like, it's just for good storytelling. Of course, it's gonna be that. It would be weird if it was just someone really random. And I really felt like it was. I think I wrote it at some point. Like, I give it 10%. It could be Red, but it could be the priest too.
If it was Uncle Red, that would be heartbreaking.
Yeah. I thought they were setting that up. And when Gary Busey is first billed on the credits at the beginning next to the moon, I was like, oh, he's the werewolf. That was just my first, like, just guess, not even knowing anything.
What if they made the mistake of putting it in the opening credits where it's like, and Everett McGill as the werewolf? Oh.
I did think they gave it away. I mean, it's like, it was like, oh, it's obviously him at the one scene, which we'll get to, but I was like, they're really trying to reveal that moment later when Jane figures it out. I was like, oh, they kind of really gave it away already.
Yeah, it was already kind of telegraphed at that point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would have been terrible if it was Uncle Red. Gives him the fireworks, gets shot in the eye, and then the next day Uncle Red shows up with the eye patch. I need all those fireworks back. It was a bad idea. He's sitting with them on Halloween with the gun. When the TV shuts off, he takes the bullet out and just drops it down the sink. Uncle Red, what are you doing? So yeah, has anybody seen My Son, My Boy, like all this stuff? So now we cut to the funeral. This is where I was talking before, that I feel like Uncle Red is a deeply flawed individual who does want to be better, because I like how he grabs his flask at the funeral and then he looks over and sees like Marty's face and sees everybody else kind of watching at the, like, what's going on the main stage at the funeral. So, and then he ends up putting his flask back away again. And I think this is the last point where we really see Uncle Red with alcohol, other than like the wild turkey scene when he wakes up. So I think, yeah, Nick, when you said like you don't really see him drunk the rest of the movie, it might just be him trying to be better because of that first interaction with the mother.
Much respect.
Yeah.
I did actually think that Red was going to give Marty a drink at this point. Like, man, you must need it. He takes out his flask, looks at Marty. And just the way that he went to go put the flask back into his pocket made it look more like he was handing him the flask.
It's time you have this.
The thing that I don't get, though,
more
is
than I do.
Actually, I could be skipping ahead. No, because this is for his friend's funeral. The only thing that made me kind of like, what, was how quick Marty were to think a werewolf could be doing this.
Yeah, he kind of jumped to like monster.
I had that thought. I was going to write that down, and then I was like, I was like, maybe they're thinking we're filling in the gaps where it's known that like people were kind of torn apart.
Reverend, he was torn apart!
His little girlfriend said she heard growls and stuff like coming from the...
Oh, that's true.
So he might have just been thinking animal, but he did leap to paranormal or
and
even
even though we know as the audience, because we're able to see those events transpire, the railroad, the pregnant woman, we know the werewolf did it, but the kid wouldn't have no idea about this. And even if it was the talk of the town, it would be so far in the back of his mind, I don't think he would actually think of that. Because you're a kid, you don't think of like day-to-day murders and stuff, or even think twice to try to get more detail about it. I really doubt that.
Yeah, or even if it's a case of like I think the biggest giveaway probably would have been the pregnant woman of came in through, like broke through the window, clawed her, and then went back out through the window. That it's like, well, that probably wouldn't be like, yeah, a wolf or a bear climbed up the trellis, came through the window. But also, I would think crazy person first.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, some crazy guy with like claws or something came in rather than, nope, lycanthrope.
I was going to write that exact thing down, and I was like, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But I see where you're coming from, because I thought that too.
No benefit.
Also, I think Everett McGill makes a great Southern preacher in this movie every time he's like up at the podium or the pulpit. I think for anybody who knows the show Preacher or knows the comic Preacher, I think if they made it in the 80s, he would have been a pretty good Jesse Custer for Preacher. But this is when we end up getting Marty, as he said, confessing that he thinks it's a monster. And then Uncle Red mentioned something about like it's probably a psycho because psychotics are more active when the moon is full. Is that an actual study? I always hear that, but I don't know if it's just like an urban legend kind of deal.
I think it's just an old wives' tale, if anything. Like one of those, just like, just an old saying.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
I thought you were
the
gonna
gravitational pull, but that doesn't matter what shadow the moon is. It's still there. It doesn't matter if it's casting a shadow or not.
I think it just
pulls all the evil out of the brain to the surface. So, following the funeral, back to the bar. So, this is when the mutton chop Andy is kind of getting everybody together. Everybody's kind of in their vests and hats and weaponry, and they're looking to start forming a mob to go hunt down whatever person or whatever kind of did all this. And the sheriff tries to shut this thing down and say that they're going to catch him, at which point he is told,
"We'll catch him. You couldn't catch a cold."
It's pretty good.
I mean, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong, yeah.
Like, I just wanted one guy next to him just like give him dap or something for that and just be like, it was pretty good. That's a pretty good one.
I mean, they instituted that curfew and the kid broke curfew. So like, what more can you possibly say?
Yeah, at that point, it's kind of his own fault.
Yeah.
So if anything, the sheriff should be more upset.
He should also be willing to start the
mob.
No, well, he called it deputizing, but he should have done that too.
Just deputize all of them.
Hand you a badge. You're all deputized now.
Darkest Mill only has the one badge, so figure out a system.
I love
Before
how
you shoot your gun, you give him the badge, then you can shoot.
Otherwise, it's illegal.
I did love how the cop, the real deputy, was about to get into that fist fight with the other patron, right? But right as when I think Marty's friend's dad is the one that came into the bar.
Yeah.
Because they're still just so upset nothing is happening because this is the second murder that happened so quickly.
Which I like. There's a lot of good lines in this scene that I ended up liking. I think the kind of a good mini speech from the sheriff, or kind of a good line from the sheriff.
The law has a name for what you people are planning. It's called private justice. And private justice is about a step and a half away from lynch mobs and hang ropes. Now, I may be no J. Edgar Hoover, but I am the law in Tarker's Mills.
It's like, you're ineffective as a sheriff and a law enforcement agent. That sounds kind of cool to be able to say that. Like,
yeah.
I'm not J. Edgar Hoover, but I'm the law in Tarker's Mill. I'm the law.
It was a good line. I'm the law. And then Brady's father comes in and throws it in his face.
Yeah, he comes in and he says he just came from the funeral. It was daylight. Then they had the scene of them going home from the funeral, and it was still like noon. And now it's nighttime. How long was that funeral?
Maybe he's at the graveyard for a long time or something.
Well, funerals can be pretty long. you have the funeral, the actual like burying ceremony.
Then usually
I don't want to call it after party, but like the reception. That's it.
Yeah. No, mine's gonna have an after party.
No, most of the town was celebrating because Brady was Brady. They were like, "Good riddance, you little shit."
My son was torn to pieces.
My cockroaches, they're saved.
If I was that sheriff, he would have given me, he was Brady's father was trying to make him feel bad. He'll be like, this would all have worked if your kid wasn't such a snot-nosed little brat. He deserved to be ripped apart, as you say. Also, why does he have photos of his son's ripped apart body? I assume that's what he was holding up.
He's a masochist.
Because they didn't have Facebook back then, so this is the only way you can show people.
My son's last selfie.
He has to run person to person, just showing them a series of photographs. Do you like this? Do you not like this?
Hold on, I'm keeping track. Let me write it down.
Can I sketch it real quick? I want to share it.
But
yeah, I'm surprised the sheriff didn't tell the father, like, honestly, this werewolf saved this town a bullet. Like, it was only a matter of time. We were going to lynch Brady tomorrow. That werewolf saved all our souls from murder.
I was here about Brady, but he's already dead. Private justice.
Yeah, which then this is when the father ends up saying, like,
you come in here and talk to these men about private justice. You dare to do that? Why don't you go out to Harmony Hill, Sheriff Haller, and dig up what's left of my boy Brady and explain to him about private justice? Would you want to do that?
It's like, you had a cool line that you're the law in Tarker's Mill. It's also kind of a cool line shutting you back down again.
Oh, yeah. It was a great line.
Yeah. Which, this was the other one my brother and I always quote. My boy was torn to pieces. Bases.
Yeah. My son was torn to pieces. Pieces. My son was torn to pieces!
While showing the picture. Like, look.
Yeah. And I don't think we don't
from
see the picture, so we don't know if it was like the body or if it was like actually just like normal Brady, just like a.
Them not showing the picture made me think they're not gonna. If they didn't show you the body when he was dead, they're not gonna show it now. So that's why I thought it was like the torn up body.
Yeah.
I'm like, why not show his picture like to drive home the guilt or something? Like if it was just his normal like school picture or something.
What is with the wrong photo and it wasn't Brady?
My
son, and then he looks, not my son. He holds up a different one.
His death is the only one that I felt was inconsistent with all the other killings. Because, yeah, the kid was a dick, but I didn't think it merited the same warrant as, like, a drunk father or a pregnant woman that wants to kill herself. Like, I just don't feel like out of those three, they should all be judged equally.
Because I mean, if you're going by the fact that in his head as the Reverend that, okay, so he stopped the other woman from killing herself to save her so her soul can go to heaven. He stopped the other father who is like, we're assuming is probably like abusive or something like that. Brady, it's like, you'll never throw another snake in this town again.
Yeah, right? It just seems so extreme.
I guess I just took it as him grasping at straws, and the suicide prevention was his only real, very thin defense.
Unless it's a case of like, as time goes on, he just gets a little more unhinged.
Maybe.
I don't know, because he did seem that way, because he seemed pretty collected and calm, and then it seemed as Marty kind of picked up on the trail and figured out like, oh, he's a werewolf. The more he learned and kind of got closer to it, the more unhinged the Reverend got.
Yeah.
Yes. Which confused me as to his true feelings about everything. He wanted it to end, except he was still protecting himself. So yeah, it was a little bit strange.
Because it makes you wonder how long he had been a werewolf at that point.
Yes. Yeah.
3 days. I'm new to this thing.
Yeah, because maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just like I'm thinking too deep into it. Because just like usually when I think werewolf, I think either you're just infected or you've been pretty well established for a long period of time. So he has to be new to that town because he knows what he's doing. Like, I don't know. It's just the same thing as vampirism, you know? Like either you just turned into a vampire or you've been one for the last 1,000 years and you're trying to acclimate to a new town to target it. So it just seemed like I didn't catch any kind of line where like, oh, the new priest is in town and he's throwing us some kind of like big carnival thing. Let's all go to there. And that's the scene where the snake happens, you know? Or anything like that. So it just, to me, it seemed like the small town always had this priest and this priest just decided out of nowhere, I'm going to start killing people. I don't know.
Yeah. Because if it's a case of, okay, he wasn't always a werewolf, then where was the catalyst werewolf in that case? And why weren't there any other attacks anywhere nearby? And if it was a case of he's always a werewolf, then we have to assume that, as he said, he's new to this town, but they just never covered anything in explaining like, oh yeah, he's new to this town.
You know, it'd be really funny.
Bit of hole there.
So in the Stephen King universe, this takes place near Derry, right?
I mean, I think everything takes place near Derry in the Stephen King universe.
So in the Stephen King novel of It, one of the manifestations the It transformed into was the Wolfman, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know if that was in the...
I think it was in the 50s.
Yeah, also I don't remember if that's in the book or just the TV version, because they turn into the werewolf in the TV one at least, because they had just left the movie theater to see, I think like I Was a Teenage Werewolf or something.
Damn, I thought it was the werewolf in the book.
I might
know
have been
they
the werewolf
changed
in the
it.
book. Yeah.
So I thought it would have been really like cool as a like lead up that the priest became or contracted the like lycanthropy from the wolf from It. Like he had a run in.
It's the interconnected worlds of the Stephen King books always fascinates me, and I always mean to go through and like check all of the connections out at some point, but it's just there's not a lot of time in my day, and there are a lot of books to read through at that point.
Yeah, it's like trying to deal with the Marvel universe, but
the Stephen King literary universe.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I think the one scene that we're missing is last Halloween when Brady eggs Reverend Lowe's car, and Reverend Lowe just kind of gives him a glare, and then that's why he kills him in this scene. He's just now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I was saving his soul because we knew he was going to do something worse eventually.
Do you know
everybody in the town nodding? He was bad.
It's for the greater good.
The greater good. What if the werewolf shows up to the hill to kill him and it's just like 7 townsfolk and he's already dead and he's like, whoa, runs back off into the woods.
These people are animals.
Is this the one werewolf, right?
You people
they
are
catch
sick.
Them werewolves then.
So we now back to the bar. We now proceed to see the world's dumbest search party. So
this is like reminiscent of like it was like the Jaws scene, except with a lot less.
I thought more of like the South Park, people. Like just angry mob, rabble, rabble, rabble.
Yeah, because this is. I feel like more and more, the more I'm thinking about it, this is a lot of similarities to like a Jaws type situation. Because yeah, it's just a bunch of people, they grab their guns, run off into the dark, and as they're getting into their cars, Reverend Lowe is kind of coming in from outside, and he sees all of them running, and he's trying to stop them, that like, don't form a mob, don't go out into the woods kind of deal. Which at this point, I think isn't the tipping its hat, or showing its hand, rather.
No.
Because at this point, you just assume, like, no, Reverend Lowe just doesn't want them forming a mob, because 100 people leaving a bar with guns is not going to end well.
Right. It's not what God
And honestly,
wants.
he's the priest. He would, I'd assume, to be the only one of, like, clear mental health in this whole thing. He would try to be the mediator, so I would imagine, too, that, yeah, he is the werewolf, but not knowing that, he's just being what a priest should do.
Yeah. Which... come to think of it, actually, if he has enough forethought to tell all these people, like, don't go in the woods, So clearly it's a case of he doesn't want anything to happen to them. He wants them to be safe.
That's what I took from it later on.
Why doesn't he just lock himself up at night?
Right.
This was one of the problems I had with the movie.
I had a
There's just a lot of
confusing thought,
inconsistent kind of behavior.
Yeah, up until the moment he is discovered, it's like he seems like he wants to keep it a secret, but he doesn't like what he's doing, or doesn't want to hurt people.
That's why I like that idea of a self-righteous werewolf. That, yeah, he has a killing nature, but being a priest, he tries to play God and judge people and kill them for their deadly sins. So, like, the suicidal mother that has a bastard child, the drunk that doesn't take care of his daughter, the school bully.
Brady.
Yeah.
Ruins pantyhose.
I mean, now I'm just picturing it's essentially like Seven, but if at the end of Seven, Kevin Spacey was a werewolf. Which I would watch if you gave us like almost like a neo-noir werewolf meets Seven type thing of he's going through and he's bumping off all of these people that he finds to be sinners, if that's the case.
Right.
He's doing it for their own good.
Right. But that, yeah, it was kind of retroactive, like, oh, like he's trying to stop them from going out and getting themselves killed. And I was like, or is he trying to stop them from going out and killing him when he knows he's going to turn later? I don't know. It was kind of like
yeah,
self-preservation or preserving them. Because we get that one private moment with him where he's like, what I'm doing is terrible and this is terrible. But then, yes, actions don't. It's inconsistent, so it just throws you off, I think.
Yeah, because I think like later on he like wakes up in bed and he's like, please God, let it end.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Or something to that effect.
That's when I knew it was like, oh yeah, he's the werewolf. Like that was the pretty hard indicator.
it's a red
I thought
herring.
the nightmare was. That's when I realized.
That's
like,
when he wakes up.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. So we have 100 people in the dark with guns. So everybody's out in the woods, walking through some sort of wooded area with a fog John Carpenter would be proud of. And I felt bad because, like, I liked the gas station guy. This is when we see him again. He's with his friend. And then his friend gets caught in the bear trap. And then we have this, like, oddly comedic scene.
The comedic that was
trying to unlatch the bear trap and then hearing a noise and then letting it go on his leg again.
Oh, it hurts his parts. Twice.
That was funny. It was a good gag.
Yeah, it was.
Look at how big. What is it? My foot. My foot. Get it off me. I'm coming. Sure. 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 Oh, Kevin. Sure. Oh, okay. Okay. Hey, over here. Oh, no. Hold on. Okay.
So this is when they're all kind of splitting up and whatnot. Some wife asks her husband if he's going to make lemonade in his pants. And he's like, I'm not scared. And then they all proceed to get mauled. So as a kid, like we have this like thick fog that's up to like waist level. So you can't see what's underneath it, but you're hearing the growling. And another scene that was taken out of TV is there's a guy at one point when he says like, we should like back up Andy real slow. And then you see a hand come out and like grab him and pull him under. And in the TV version, that was it. Like then it's the rest of the people getting attacked and whatnot. But in this, you then have him pop back up from the fog and half his face is missing.
Yeah. Wasn't the greatest prosthetic. Like it was, I think it was just like a completely fake dude. Or maybe it was wearing a fake face or something, but it might have been a dummy.
Yeah.
That was pretty
surprised
gory.
Me. Yeah, because then we have one of my favorite images from this movie is the bartender with his Peacemaker baseball bat ends up finding the werewolf, which we don't see. He's under the fog. And you just see the bat as he's beating the werewolf. And then all of a sudden you hear a noise and then you see the bat change to the other side of the screen and the werewolf starts beating him with the bat.
I thought that was funny.
Which it's like, it's funny. And then also that means Does Reverend Lowe have that much awareness as the werewolf that he's not just like this animalistic tearing this guy apart? It's, no, I'm going to catch the bat as you swing with it, pull it out of your hands, and then beat you with it for the sheer irony.
Yeah, I have a note that says, Wolfman can use bats. Yeah, it's pretty clear.
It's like the famous Monster Squad quote.
It's not the first time he uses the bat, too.
I
mean, it's not the last time, rather. Sorry.
You hear the growling and everybody's kind of concerned, and all of a sudden you just hear the click of like a revolver. Wait a second. Just a furry hand comes out with like a snub nose, like Colonel Chi in Surf Ninjas.
Takes a hostage.
Grabs mutton chops Andy as a gun to his head. You let me out of here.
Kill him.
All the town is like, we saw what you did to Brady. We love your work. So this was the end of the search party here. And we immediately go into another funeral scene at the church, which is a great misdirection.
It's kind of funny. Yeah, I didn't like the scene. I just felt like it was way like something's fucky, and I don't like it. You know, like just watching it, it just seemed like really out of context, and I figured this was going to be some kind of dream sequence really soon, and sure enough, but it just felt really out of context. That it's just like, why are you having werewolf dreams? And that's the part where I really started to not like it, because I had that idea of like a self-righteous werewolf that I've already mentioned several times, and it's just like, are you conscious of your current self, or when you go werewolf do you completely like Hulk out and you have no memory and you just wake up like, oh, what did I do? And it just seemed like he was too aware of what was happening sometimes, that it was him that was under control while being the werewolf, and I never fully got behind his actions and all that.
Yeah. The like his kind of motives and his awareness aside, like, yeah, with the scene we get that funeral, and then it's something slightly off kilter, and then it's just kind of more stuff starts going off kilter. It's just kind of, it's much different from the previous funeral scene. So as you said, something seems wrong with it. And then at that point, when he's talking on doing like his homily or doing whatever his sermon is, that's when all of a sudden he sees the Brady's father saying that he's reverend, he was torn apart, and all of a sudden everybody starts getting like a little bit furry, and you start seeing teeth, and all of a sudden everybody starts transforming, which I love how it's like, oh, American Werewolf in London had a great transformation. Here's 50 werewolves in one scene.
It was a monster mash.
So it's like, I always love the organist when all of a sudden it cuts over and it's a werewolf just pounding on the keys as blood starts coming out of the piano.
Yeah. Did a lot of makeup for just that like 30 seconds of screen time.
I wonder if this scene was always intended to be there, like in this way, or if it was something decided after the fact, because if the producer and whatnot didn't like the other werewolf one, it was, okay, fine, you want more werewolves? Here's all the werewolves. Pick one of them.
That was the makeup test scene. They just threw it in there.
You just do a lineup, all of them have to stand there, and it's like, which one do we want as our main werewolf? Can number 2 please step forward and growl?
I did like these werewolves better than the actual final result, too.
Because these were the more...
These are more like Wolfman kind of werewolves.
Yeah, because it's still like the no snout or anything like that. It's still the face for the most part. It was almost closer to like the Monster Squad type werewolf, where it's still the human-esque face that's wolfified. If that's a word.
He was I would say he's the scariest out of what we're talking about.
Which
scariest one? Looking anyway.
The Monster Squad werewolf?
Wolfman, yeah.
I don't remember.
Oh, well, when it's my next round pick, we'll get to it. So, yeah, we have this scene. Everything goes haywire. He wakes up from like a cold sweat, and we see Reverend Lowe, and that's when he says,
"Let it end, dear God, let it end."
So we don't know if, does he not have a choice? Is he not doing this willingly? As you guys stated, it seems like certain things that have happened, he has to have some level of awareness while in wolf form. So it's like, I don't know what the case is here. Like, is he truly regretful, or is it more like, I'm just tired of doing this?
I mean, because he has a vendetta against Marty later, so it's like...
Yeah, it doesn't take much to put him into
his human mind, and is conscious of what has happened in his normal life and carries over somewhat.
To throw him off his trail, he should have killed one person in human form. And then they'd have been like, oh, this doesn't beat the MO. This is like, it's a snub-nosed revolver bullet. Also, let it end, dear God, let it end is what I say at the beginning of every workday. So,
Same.
So we have the fair of some sort. So now we have the 4th of July fireworks, which I like how in the beginning of the movie we end up seeing the kind of overhead shot leading into the town green, and we see everybody there. We essentially get a similar shot now, except now it's like just one lone car driving through. And then we see that the fireworks have been canceled due to mass murder, which, reasonable.
It's the worst part of the movie. I mean, like, the worst thing to happen in the movie is the cancellation of the fireworks.
Yeah.
Yeah, not all the deaths and all the pain and suffering. It's just, no fireworks.
Oh, they canceled the fireworks. Oh, it's no fair.
Well, I like how Marty kind of treats it like these are equal things, because it's like, yeah, first my best friend dies, then I don't get fireworks. It's like, yeah, those are the two things that go back to back.
You know, it's not enough that the monster killed all those people. He killed Brady. Now he's got them to cancel the fair.
And the fireworks.
Yeah, and the fireworks. That's another thing.
See, this is why Jane is in the right. He's a spoiled brat.
Yeah. So Uncle Red is working on a gift to cheer Marty up, which a sober Uncle Red seems like such a fun uncle here. And I don't know how much of that is just like Gary Busey shining through as Uncle Red from like the mid 80s of just, he seems like a genuinely fun guy to have around at a barbecue.
He's a funkle.
When Red gives Marty the car, which I will call Silver Bullet Mark II, he's like, oh my God, is this for me? And like, I was like, I've actually had it with him at this point, and I really did, like, with the argument that his sister had with their parents in the car ride just before this scene. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, no, it's not for you. It's for your sister, so she can fucking find you whenever you decide to fuck off and play with kites while your fucking parents are waiting for dinner. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Yes, it's for you.
Is it for me? No, it's for me. He hops in and takes off.
Oh, fucking kid. And then not only that, like, his mom will never let him keep that thing.
Yeah, because even if it's a case of like, don't let your mother know how fast that goes. Oh, I'm sure when she looks at that exhaust, she'll know.
It's double in size, and the fact that it's loud as fuck. That you.
It's for show.
It's not like he can walk it away to try to conceal the thing, but at the same time,
with his arms, he can probably manually operate that thing.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, it'll come up later, but he like sneaks out of the house, and I just thought like, how did he sneak out of the house and leave the property and get to the road without that thing waking anybody up? Because just turning it on, they both have to shout to be able to continue talking.
Here's how you started. You remember what I told you?
Yeah.
Now be damn careful.
Okay.
How you started. Put your hand on the brake.
Push.
There you go. Push.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah.
Shake.
Yeah.
Also, if this is Silver Bullet Mark II, is the like Silver Bullet Mark III the one that comes in the briefcase, and the Silver Bullet Mark IV the nanite one?
No, the Mark IV I thought was the one that he jumps out the window and it follows him.
Well, maybe
I
not
was coming out of his glasses.
So, fireworks canceled due to mass murder. Gary Busey, great uncle. We get the Silver Bullet wheelchair. I like how the music kind of does that, like the theme music kind of swelling up to the reveal of the new Silver Bullet. And then that music during his joyride scene, which I think is actually called Joyride. They also played in the end credits. For some reason, ever since I was a kid, like, whenever I get into a car and it's a nice day and we're driving, that's the song that pops up into my head all the time, and I still have no idea who did that song.
Guitar
80s
riff.
guitar. Which, so Marty ends up coming back. They end up explaining. He takes off for a joyride. Uncle Red is laying on the ground because he knows he probably is going to end up getting yelled at for doing this. And Marty tells him, like, you know, I don't get you. And Uncle Red just like casually does, I know you don't.
This thing goes super, super fast.
I know it goes super fast, and you better watch it. Because if your mother finds out just how fast it goes, I'm going to end up singing soprano in the Vienna Boys Choir.
You know, I don't get you.
I know you don't.
And it was just like quick and so nonchalant that I just wonder if that was one of Gary Busey's ad libs, because it's just like
Definitely.
it doesn't seem like it was written. It just seems like, yeah, I know you don't.
Yeah, nobody does, but that's not the point, Marty. Marty. They do have a little bit of that relationship, except
I would watch
too
that.
confident.
Uncle Red hopping through dimensions, bringing Marty along on the silver bullet.
I'm out of practice. I want to do the line so bad.
I do like Gary's line there.
I think the priest is a werewolf.
Oh, jeez, Red.
There we go.
Marty, there's no such thing as werewolves, Marty. Gary's line here, where he's like, if your mother catches you going that fast, I'm gonna be singing soprano in the Vienna Boys Choir. That's what prompts Marty to say, "I don't get you."
Yeah.
It's a great line.
I wonder if both like that back and forth was completely ad libbed, because it's like, I'm gonna be singing soprano in the Vienna Boys Choir. You know, I don't get you. Yeah, I know you don't.
It does feel very natural. It's funny.
Yeah. They had a great relationship in the movie. It really flowed naturally, and it definitely showed.
Yeah. Which also, like, seeing their cookout that they're having at their house makes me just miss summer cookouts. This just seems fun.
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah.
You can have them again, though. We're back to that point, pretty much, kind
of. So they leave the cookout. Red has Marty has him bring him over to his car, and Red loads him up with fireworks because I think it was like some psycho's not going to keep the good guys down or something like that. So we're going to have 4th of July fireworks, but we're going to have them in September. Which I don't understand, because I feel like unless there was a really hard time change between scenes, they see the fireworks thing that there's no 4th of July fireworks, and then they jumped directly to the next scene where they were doing the reveal of the silver bullet. So I don't know if it's supposed to be like a month later or something like that, or if he just means like, you'll have these and you can do them whenever you want kind of deal.
It was like 30 Days of Night, where I felt through the movie, even though it's supposed to take place over a long period of time, it didn't feel that way while watching it. And it felt like it more happened.
That was the confusing part.
Yeah, because you telling us that it actually happened over the course of basically a year, I didn't get that feeling whatsoever. I legit thought that it was like on Monday, the first person died. Then on Tuesday, the next person died. Then on Wednesday, the mob went out and they all got killed.
Yeah. Which I think it might just be because they didn't really, at least I didn't notice, like there was no change to scenery or things like that. So there's no indication of a changing of seasons.
Yeah.
Right.
Which it's like, yeah, if they're shooting in North Carolina, which I don't know if that was entirely done there or if it was only like they still use sets in other parts. But I feel like if they're shooting on location in certain things, yeah, it's a little bit tougher to try to change the entire area into the next season. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know they kind of they throw a line in there to like fudge the werewolf lore, but it's like, you know, usually it's like full moon attacks. Like that's why I thought, it can't be like over the course of a couple days or a couple weeks because the moon is not full. You know, it's got to go through its cycle. That's why it's called Cycle of the Werewolf, right? So I was like, this has to be taking place over time, and because unless he's a werewolf every night, which would be inconsistent. But in any case,
so he says not to abuse these fireworks, don't do them alone, all that fun stuff. So naturally, the very next scene is Marty sneaking out at night to launch fireworks by himself.
Now, mind you, this kid is crippled. So just let that sink in for a second. So he sneaks out by climbing out the window, climbing down his trellis that, with like that thing next to the house. He was smart enough to not only that, also park his motorbike wheelchair next to said trellis, so he can just and then start it up and then manage to escape out, where in the middle of nowhere in his neighborhood, starting that up would sound like you can hear that from miles away.
Yeah.
So I do think they could have done a little better job, like on this, whenever he's moving himself onto things, or like moving onto the chair that takes him up the stairs, like he's not. You can tell he's like, he knows he has the use of his legs, like the actor Corey Haim. Like he's not really not using his legs. Like it's a little apparent.
He's not really paralyzed.
But I mean, like if you really did not I'm sure he could act like that. Like I can't use my legs. Like if you really did that, you'd have a much harder time getting around than he shows in the movie.
I mean, yeah, it's not like Daniel Day-Lewis and My Left Foot kind of deal. But I think, like, I mean, I'm no expert, but I think, like, he does a decent job.
But I can just watch him do it. Like, you can see him, like, moving his legs to get into position. I'm like, well, you can't do that. But
yeah, I mean, it's like there's an awareness of he'll reach down and he'll grab his leg, but it's like he moves it
really lazily. Just kind of like bumps it with his arm and his leg moves.
So I don't know, like, how exactly accurate that may look.
Maybe it's only a partial. I don't know how. Maybe it's partial paralysis. I don't know.
My bigger question is, okay, great. So he parked his bike downstairs. How did he explain getting upstairs then? So did he just ride that thing over there, stop, and then yell to somebody, hey, I want to go in tonight? And then somebody had to come over there and get him and not think it's weird that it's like, yeah, why would you just stop your wheelchair here and then, like,
well, he does have the inside, the standard wheelchair for going around the house and stuff.
Yeah, but that was inside. He clearly, climbed down his window.
Yeah, but I'm saying he parks it. He's like, okay, I'm ready to go in and like go to bed. So they go get his regular wheelchair for him, and he transfers.
But wouldn't they find that weird that it's like, why wouldn't you park it though by the front door then, or like put it in? Why would they just leave this thing outside or like out of the garage? Just let me park it here, call somebody over, bring my other wheelchair, get me into that, and then bring me inside.
Yeah, the more stealthy route would have probably.
I think we're reading too much into that particular one. I think that one's okay.
What if he parked it there and then he climbed up the trellis into the room?
Well, I would buy that because of how strong he is.
Where's Marty? Totally I'm upstairs, Mom. How? Have you been fooling us for years?
Well, not only is he super strong, but he's super smart to go out in the middle of the night, in the dark, late at night, with a killer on the loose just to set off fireworks. That's the first thing he does after his uncle explicitly said not to do.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's poor choice on his part, which also, seeing the scene of him just like out there firing fireworks by himself, it's kind of sad thinking of the fact that his best friend's dead. His other friend had to move away. Like, he doesn't have anyone else. So this is the only fun he's having is by himself at night out there launching fireworks with like no one.
Right.
But we get another great POV from the werewolf from the woods approaching this bridge. And he ends up kind of approaching Marty. He goes in for the attack. And this was quick thinking on Marty's part to kind of fire like a bottle rocket or like a Roman candle or whatever it is. And somehow nails him right in the eye.
Yeah, he kept his cool he kept a cool head in that situation. Like, I'd be shitting my pants and not able to do anything except try to run away. But he's like, I want to defend myself with this rocket. He does a great job.
Unhand me, scoundrel. He's on guard.
Got balls of steel.
Marty pulls out a
You
snub
see
nose.
a mythological monster just coming at you, and you're like, "Well, it's time to shoot."
So yeah,
I
he
felt
gets-
his terror though, like he sold it. But I mean, the writing was that he had to shoot a rocket, and he did his best.
Yeah. Which, I mean, this was always fun for me. I think this is I think the nightmare scene is when the movie goes from like part 1 to part 2. It's a very hard change for the rest of the movie in terms of, I feel like a lot of these scenes, because now we're starting to see the werewolf more. It seems to be a little bit more in terms of the, I don't know, some of the decision making, like Marty firing this thing here. But I like how we end up going back. Marty ends up calling Uncle Red. This is when we see him in bed with Wild Turkey on his nightstand and with some other woman in bed with him, which we don't know. Like, is that the woman he's getting the divorce from? Is this another woman that's going to be like the new one?
Another
I think it
creature
was
of the night.
bluesy.
The creature of the night. So Marty ends up
That's why he ran
explaining
out
all
of
of
there.
this. Uncle Red, very nicely, for somebody who just got woken up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, tells him go to bed, and then
I
just
love-
gotta.
Like a movie trope of just when you see him pull in and then climb into the bedroom window, which worked past the fact that
I
he's
was
super
gonna
strong.
say, like he
this-
did muscle his way back up there.
But the spotlights that were as bright as the sun lighting up the road in the backyard, because this was supposed to be middle of the night, and you can easily tell that there's just huge floodlights aiming up into the trees.
Well, they live on a compound.
Clearly.
His parents are doomsday preppers. So,
Yeah,
because
he
Uncle
muscled
Red
himself back up to his room.
It's all
I think
that
actually
adrenaline.
he just slapped both palms on the ground and just launched. So Uncle Red doesn't believe him at this point, but the next day Marty fills in Jane on all of this. And I like how quickly she's just like, I don't believe this werewolf thing, but I see the look on his face and I believe that something has to be up. So she goes along with it and kind of works with him. And this is when she does her
that he
bottle
was
charity
attacked.
door-to-door thing. So she's collecting bottles and cans. She's going door-to-door, and her sole job right now is she's trying to find out, is there anybody in town who's now missing an eye, seeing as Marty says he shot somebody in the eye last night. So I like how she goes to the first door, and it's like this older couple, and both of them have both eyes. That's great. She goes into like the barber shop, and ends up asking like, oh, hey, I'm here for bottles and cans. And the guy says, oh, Toby Witchlaw came by and already collected all of them. Which I wanted her to be like, Toby Witchclaw, the better stay in his lane, and there's about to be another werewolf attack. Get out of my territory.
Say my name.
So I like how
Jane.
So she walks over and she's checking one of the guys who has kind of the hot cloth on his face, which looked to be Mutton Chop Andy.
Oh, it is Andy for sure.
Yeah, which like
Mutton
for
Chop
the
Andy.
guy who runs his mouth and gets everybody out in the woods and they get killed, like he sure is cantankerous despite getting half the town killed. It's like you think you would kind of be a little nicer just so everybody kind of smooths over the fact that, oh, yeah, I got like 7 people killed.
He did take it, he didn't lash out at her for coming over, removing the hot towel from his face and just like, but he just giving that that hard stare, like as soon as the towel's off, like just, what are you doing?
She is, I mean, she
That
is
was kinda
older than
funny.
Marty, but at the same time, like, she is just a kid.
That's
Yeah.
true. So it's not
The
like
guy's
he's going to be rude.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy's a dick, but he at least knows not to, put down children like that.
Yeah.
He just kind of mutters like, Jesus Christ, as she leaves.
What if she undoes the towel? He's dead. He all of a sudden, you look out the window, you just see the werewolf running away. How do you do this one?
Or the barber turns into, she looks back and the barber is the werewolf. You found me out.
He's been poisoned. So after, like, she walks into other places, like she goes to this diner and whatnot, and everybody sitting there at the stool just kind of stares at her with like stone faces, and she's like, oh, does anybody have bottles and cans? And they just stare at her instead of answering. And she has to go down and ask like one guy on, oh, do you have it? And it's like, no. why is everybody in this town all of a sudden like so rude to her other than that one barber?
Yeah.
I thought that was the
I
bar.
think-
And they were just like, why is a kid in the bar? And they were giving her shit because of it.
Oh, I thought it was, it might be the
Because
bar.
it's just the bar is one
I
of
thought
the
it was the
established
bar.
locations. So
Yeah. Because it
I
looked narrower
guess I
than
just-
the bar.
I kind of took it as the filmmakers trying to be like, with that slow moving shot, they're just her paranoia being like, am I going to find this werewolf? And like, it's like,
She walks in,
kinda like, who
everyone
is
has
the
eye
werewolf?
patches.
Just with that shot. They kind of made him weirder, but God damn it.
It was a big Roman candle fight last night. We all lost our eyes.
Our left eyes.
All of our left eyes. So,
And then she comes upon,
big reveal. We end up going to the church.
not so big.
Reveal. So we end up coming to the church. We have Reverend Lowe facing the camera. We have Jane behind him. And so when he looks up from his work, we see he, has a patch over his eye because of a wound. So, coincidence? Maybe. So we already kind of knew this at this point. It wasn't really a reveal
Right.
to us. So I don't really know why they did the music change, like dun dun. Like, he's the werewolf. Yeah, we knew he was the werewolf like 15 minutes ago. But still, like, it's, if they held off if they didn't do the nightmare scene, granted it was cool seeing all the werewolf transformations, but like Nick said, like, it was a point where the mystery aspect is kind of fun figuring it out. To just throw it out there like that is a little too obvious. It kind of takes some of the fun away. So when we get to a
Yeah.
reveal like this, it would have been more effective at that point.
I really feel they should have cut that whole nightmare sequence. And it felt so campy compared to the rest of the movie. Like, yeah, it had some like funny bits that weren't fully appropriate, but at least it just broke the like tension.
Yeah.
And that's what made those comedic bits a bit more funny. But that was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, it just made no sense, completely out of context. Like, yeah, he's holding the sermon for this funeral, but why is everyone acting so funny and going over the top? It just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know the implication of, if there was an implication, when she opens the garage, the Reverend's like, oh, you got the donation cans, like, take them to the garage. And it's just like a hoarder level of cans and bottles inside the
I expected the bodies to
garage.
be under the cans. She found the baseball bat, but I was expecting there to actually been like an arm or a severed arm or something to be in
Right.
there.
Then it would have made sense why you're how you're like hiding bodies, but I just didn't understand why.
The only thing is he hasn't
collecting all this.
He hasn't been quiet about any of the murders so far, and it doesn't seem like it's not like he's eating them, so he's not bringing them back. It just seems like everybody is just murdered, they're dead, and then he just leaves the scene. I think he
Right.
just had the bat just as a, I don't know, like
Yes.
a souvenir.
Yeah, that's what I took. Like he walked home with it as a werewolf.
As a
walked
werewolf. Just hitching, just walking out, showing a little leg. I need to go as far as
like 'em
Tucker's
hairy.
Mill. So, also, the note I wrote is she's dropping off the bottles and cans. They open the garage, filled with bottles and cans. What's his end game? If they're collecting these for some sort of charity thing, he does know he needs to bring them somewhere else, right? Like, they don't end at this garage.
Yeah, I don't get
When did
why
they
he didn't
become
put
money?
more into like bags. You see, like in the corner of one shot, there are some bags, but why aren't you just doing that as you receive them instead of just, oh, dump them in the corner and I'll figure it out later? That's why I really thought there were like body parts in the can pile, because you heard all the flies and stuff, and I figured like, oh, it's just soda cans and stuff. They're attracted to that, when in reality there's something darker beneath it, but guess not.
Yeah,
No, they
I
probably just didn't
thought
rinse them first.
it seemed like they were building up to a body part reveal, then it was just the bat, and it just made me ask more questions. Like, okay, it's just he's hoarding these cans for some reason, and anyway,
Yeah. Which I like how, so she's looking through the cans as she's putting everything in there, and she finds the chewed up, like, Peacemaker baseball bat that we saw that the bartender had. So now she definitely knows that it's Reverend Lowe and something's up with him. So Reverend Lowe enters the garage behind her, and I like how she plays it off like nothing's fine with dumbfounded fear in her eyes and sweat.
Why, Jane, you're trembling.
I don't feel well. think maybe I got too much sun.
Well, would you like to come in the parlor and lie down for a bit?
No.
Or have a cold drink? I have some soda.
I think I should get home and help my mom with dinner.
I'll give you a ride.
No.
Like,
wide-eyed.
are you okay?
deer in the
Yeah,
headlights.
I'm fine. Oh, do you want maybe a soda? I have ice cold soda.
You're trembling.
No. Yeah. It's like, oh, then I'll give you a ride home. No. You don't have to give me a ride home. I'll walk.
So
Okay, is everything okay? Perfect.
For our listeners that have not actually seen the movie and are still listening along, the Peacemaker bat is not a brand of bat. The bar owner had actually carved the word Peacemaker into the bat. So when she sees that, she knows immediately, like, oh, it's not just like another Jose Canseco bat this guy happens to have. It's
Hope
an
he didn't spend
actual
money on that.
right. Since he carved that word into it, she knew without a doubt this was the bar owner's bat. It wasn't just like the same model kind of thing.
Yeah, so this was like the smoking gun that it's definitely Reverend Lowe.
Yeah.
She'd had a few run-ins with the... It's like, I carry the bat around town. She's too young to go into... Although she does just barge in to ask for her collection, so I guess they visit the bar occasionally.
He's chased her out many a time.
This is Peacemaker. You've seen it before.
Do you have any bottles to do? Whoa! Comes running out from behind the bar. If you ever come here for charity again.
Then comes my favorite shot of the movie.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you want me...
Oh, go ahead, dude.
Yeah.
Well...
If we tell anyone, grown-ups, I mean, they'd laugh. What are we gonna do? I think I know.
She reports her findings to Marty, and Marty's wise idea is to have her start sending serial killer type messages to the Reverend that say, I know who you are. I know what you are. Why don't you just kill yourself?
And it's like cut out of letters and magazines.
Yeah. Yeah, it's magazine serial killer style letters. And it's
This got a huge
I just
laugh
pictured it
out
as
of
a
me.
bully. Like he's bullying the Reverend. Like
This is
kill
a
yourself.
1970s Twitter post in actual form.
Oh,
I mean,
it just got me.
He goes to this idea so quickly. It's not like, oh, what do we come up with? It's like, I know what we have to do.
Kill yourself.
It's like I'm almost wondering, did he just already have this note and they just were like, I already put the work in, send it to him.
Was going to send this to Brady before he got killed.
You know how hard it is to find all these letters?
So
to steal the newspaper from Dad every morning.
So this is when they tell Uncle Red as a group, and he reacts appropriately. And also he says, what is this? Hardy Boys meets Reverend Werewolf. And I know he's saying it like because it's ridiculous, but I also know that would be the most checked out book in my library if that existed.
Abbott and Costello meet the Reverend Werewolf.
So I like how
you kids are like crazy sending death threats to the Reverend.
Yeah.
You don't understand.
I understand that my niece and my nephew are sending little love notes to the local minister suggesting that he gargle with broken glass or eat a rat poison omelet.
Yeah, gargle with broken glass.
So I do like Red's solution is rather than just being like, no, stop, this is ridiculous. He not only tells him like, I don't believe it, this is ridiculous, but then he says, they get in the car, he drives them to the church just to show them like, there's the Reverend. He is not a werewolf. He is perfectly fine. So like, stop being crazy. Which I think at this point, I wouldn't necessarily tell people or adults that he's a werewolf. They would probably be more apt to help you and do something if you're like, no, I think he's a killer, rather than he is a werewolf. Seeing as all these murders have been happening, it's like, yeah, he attacked me, if you know who it is, and just be like, yep, he attacked me, and I got him in the eye with something. Oh, there he is, and he's missing an eye.
Right. Case closed.
I never understand it in movies when people are getting attacked by something or something's following them, so they'll go to, like, the adults, or they'll go to somebody, and then they give them the truth without dumbing it down. It's like, don't give them the most ridiculous version. Give them a more realistic version. All you need is their support. Like, don't call the cops being like, oh, a guy escaped from my dreams and he's attacking me. It's like, no, just say like,
there's somebody after me.
Yeah, there's somebody after me. Get the cops over here. It's like, okay, then the cops show up. Oh, they got Freddy Krueger, yada, yada. Like, you don't need to tell them the realistic version or the unrealistic version.
Right.
There's a robot sent from the future trying to kill me. Like, all right, lady.
Yeah. There's a man that showed up and he has a gun. Oh, we're on our way. Thank you.
I do want to say they when she mails that letter about like killing himself, they show the Reverend like reading the letter. But he looks more like stone faced, like I'm gonna have to kill these kids because they know my secret. I thought it'd be funny if it just zooms in and he's like crying, like tear comes down his cheek.
Or it's like Robin Hood Men in Tights when it's like, why don't we bring the dummies into battle? And he looks at the screen and just does the just reads the note. Maybe. Nah, I'll just kill him. So so he shows them the Reverend. They end up going back home. They call it a day. And then this is when we see the next scene. They're outside of like a baseball field, and it's kind of a nice break in the action. And this scene of Marty kind of watching all of these kids run around, all these kids play baseball. And it's kind of sad seeing him just kind of knowing that he's watching them and is kind of envious of the fact that he can't do any of these things, which I like how you would think that these kids, it would be like, oh, typical, like maybe a bullying thing, but they end up looking at Marty and they're like, oh, hey, we're done. We're going to do something else. Like, you want to come hang out with us? And it's, oh, hey, these are pretty decent kids. They're better than Brady.
Yeah. You want to go fly a kite? Oh, yours got stuck in a tree. That sucks.
Yeah.
I'm going to go keep
Mine's still
mine.
Awesome. I'm going to live forever. So I like how as we have the scene of Marty watching them, like the Reverend is slowly creeping up on him in his car, which...
Yeah, from right around the shed.
Like, what is it, a Prius? Like, how does he not know? Like, how does he not hear this thing coming around and driving, like, behind him?
Say, how did he get back there, like, strategically?
He had to dismantle and rebuild his car behind that garage. Piece by piece. So Marty ends up kind of seeing this, or rather, he doesn't see him. He ends up deciding to go home. While he's driving, he ends up seeing the Reverend following him, and they go into a chase. At which point, like, Marty ends up going onto a bridge. He tries to get run off the bridge. And so he ends up, like, going off slightly onto the bridge, pulling himself back on, gets knocked off the other side of the bridge, pulls himself back on, and then escapes and ends up finding this, like, broken down overhang bridge.
Like a covered bridge, yeah.
Yeah, where they have the sign, like, bridge out or something like that, or, like, bridge closed off. Yeah. And Marty looks down and he sees that he's running out of gas, which is the second time in this movie that he has not kept track of his resources.
Foreshadow.
Yeah. So his vehicle just happens to kind of die going into this thing, and it just comes to a complete stop. And the Reverend casually parks, gets out of his vehicle, and this is when he comes inside to kind of kill Marty, we're assuming. Which, it's amazing how earlier in the movie, and then comparing it to later in the movie, Everett McGill, just giving him the eye patch and a 5 o'clock shadow completely transforms his character.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I actually have that written down, that he is completely different now versus his whole demeanor is just very different now versus the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. Like, I always liked Everett McGill as an actor, and I think it's pretty good as far as him to be like, yeah, no, you can definitely see the pre-Nightmare Scene Reverend and the post-Nightmare Scene Reverend. And you can tell he's getting off kilter now.
No, I think it's just the trolling letters that he kept getting mailed. Should kill yourself, furry.
Well, what we didn't see is that wasn't the only letter.
Yeah.
Marty's been sending these for a year and a half before the first killing. The Reverend Everett McGill ends up coming in. He's talking to Marty about how he saved the other girl's soul by killing her before she can kill herself and all of this. And then I like how all of this eloquent speech, and then he's like, you meddling little shit.
Yeah, he just breaks at that point.
You see how all things serve the will and the mind of God. You see, you meddling little shit! You're gonna have a terrible accident, Marty. You're gonna fall in the river.
Luckily, Marty ends up seeing somebody, I think it was Mr. Tillerman or something like that, some guy on like a tractor going by. Yeah, and he starts screaming for him.
I really didn't think he would actually hear it. He's on a tractor and the kid is easily like 100 feet away.
Inside a building.
Inside.
I mean, maybe you can just... Is it just everybody in the town can detect when Marty's in trouble?
Yeah, except
it's like
Marty.
a Jimmy Olsen situation. So
I'm in danger.
Chuckles, I'm in danger.
Say, you, Marty. Hey, yo, Marty.
Is that you too, Reverend? Yeah. Nothing weird here. Back to my tractor. No, so
I'm just
Marty...
a weird drifter.
Well, in the book, he kills a drifter that we don't have in this movie. So one of the months is he just like finds and kills a drifter. Don't know the details to that. Just there you go. So he ends up getting help from this guy. Clearly, he's run out of gas again. Not the first time this has happened to Marty. The guy makes a couple jokes with him. And then we cut back to them try to convince Uncle Red again.
But this time they have evidence.
Yes. And what is that evidence?
Paint. Paint?
Paint.
It is paint.
Yeah.
Paint.
Reverend going hard in the paint.
Tar paint.
Good thing.
So
it's a lot better than somebody's word that the fucking priest is a priest is a werewolf.
A priest is a vampire. That would be something.
You know, it does make sense too. Like you could have just said that the priest is the killer. Just remove the whole werewolf bit. And of course, it would make a lot more sense. And now by saying like, yeah, look, see, he fucked up my bike. He tried to run me off the road, which I thought was a little bullshit because you mean to tell me that his little piece of shit car couldn't run down a dirt bike?
Well, we don't know how fast that thing goes.
That's true. He was told not to tell his mother, so.
Because I don't remember specifically, but I feel like when he was on a joyride, did he end up like passing a car?
Yes. That was good. I figured he was probably going like 30 or 40.
Yeah, and the car just wasn't going fast. What if he has like the Dominic Toretto Nas boost in it?
Probably does.
Marty lives his life a quarter mile at a time.
What if Reverend's about to kill him and he's like, I can't let you live. You've discovered my secret. That I'm a vampire. Like, wait, vampire? There's a werewolf loose in town. Oh, shit.
A werewolf? Oh, shit.
Oh, God.
We have to stop him.
We gotta team up, Marty. Werewolves are my mortal enemies.
I was gonna say a brief aside when you mentioned my mortal enemies. I remember an episode of, I think it was like the Real Ghostbusters or something like that, where they ended up coming on a town where there was like a war going on between werewolves and vampires. But the werewolf would scratch the vampire, and then the vampire would turn into a werewolf, and then there were vampires biting werewolves, and they were turning into vampires.
That
and they were just
really
switching back and forth.
Actually, I think I've seen that.
My mortal enemy.
Distant memory.
Sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
So with the paint transfer on the bike, you can see where it's all dent up because it was hit by the Reverend's car. This is enough for at least Red to bring it to the police. And that's when he sits down with Locke and tells him, like, hey, there's something going on with the Reverend. You need to go check it out. And if I'm not mistaken, he does drop the whole werewolf bit. He just says that, like, this guy's after my nephew, right?
Yeah, like Red's the only smart one out of that group.
Yeah, because of course the police will know exactly what to do against werewolves as well as deranged killers. So at least, you know, good for Red at least too to give the police some kind of lead because they really had nothing leading up to this point.
We didn't even see an investigation at this point. It was just like, oh, we're gonna get our man. What? The only thing we've seen you do is charge into a bar and tell people to calm down.
I want all of you people to go home. I don't remember deputizing a single one of you.
That's right, Joe. The only deputy you got is that fat shitbag beside you, and neither one of you has done anything about solving his case.
We'll catch him.
You couldn't catch a cold.
And your deputy get into fist fights.
So the only thing I don't get is like, all right, he has this new evidence he's going to investigate. Why does he have to do it in the middle of the night?
By
Like,
himself.
Yeah, and breaking and entering, no less.
And it's not even like he tells anybody, oh, I'm going to investigate the Reverend. It's like, nope. It's like that night he just shows up by himself in the still of night. And originally I thought it was like, oh, he's going to try to sneak in kind of deal. But then he lights up a cigarette, walks over and just knocks on the front door. And it's like, Reverend. And it's like, okay,
Are you the killer?
Is it you, the killer? So, yeah, of course, the guy's not going to answer. You're probably knocking on this door at like midnight or 11 o'clock at night. So then that's when he decides to like walk around the side, and then he ends up opening up the garage and finds a lot of the bottles and cans that have not been properly handled by Charity.
The real crime.
The real crime. That's actually what they brought him in on. It's like Al Capone with tax evasion. They ended up walking through, and that's when he ends up, I think, was it he ends up finding the bat as well, or he ends up getting surprised by the Reverend?
Yeah, he sees the car damage, and then he gets surprised by the Reverend.
Yeah.
The Reverend had the bat on him the whole time.
Which also, I like how this garage, no lock. He just walks up. Well, the only lock was Stereo Quinn. So this garage, he just walks up and just opens and just walks in. Like 70s small town America. You don't have to lock your doors.
He's the most dangerous thing in town. Who's he going to hide from?
True. Actually, yeah, that's
What are you
true.
going to do, rob me? Oh, boy.
So I like how the Reverend surprises him, and then he pulls the gun on the Reverend, tells him, like, we have to go in, like, you're under arrest, yada, yada. And then the Reverend proceeds to transform into a werewolf, and he just hangs out while it happens.
I guess Reverend swings and smacks the gun out of his hand, so it takes him by surprise. Then he starts to transform, so the Reverend's like, oh, shit. He does just stand
the
there in
Reverend was
terror
like, oh,
kind of
shit?
for a second. Yeah.
Oh, shit, I'm the werewolf.
Oh, shit, I just hit a cop. I'm in big trouble.
I have priors. He just gets in his car and takes off. No one will ever believe you.
Yeah.
Then the sheriff starts sending
is
him letters.
Terrified. He's kind of in shock. Which I thought, I was like, come on, like, do something. But I guess he is seeing a werewolf transform. He kind of like, I can't look away and I don't have my gun. And then he immediately, the werewolf bashes him over the head with a baseball bat. So he doesn't really have too much time to make a move.
Well, like,
he has like a Lucille style head wound on his head and like laying there conscious still though.
Like, I just would have loved to, if you see something like this happen and they smack your gun out of your hand, run.
I know, yeah, you want to say that. There's a part of me where it's like, how would you react? I guess you'd look at it for a second like, oh my god, this dude is turning and he's transforming. But then by then it was too late. He gets smacked with the bat. Right.
I mean, honestly, if I snuck in, as soon as the Reverend, like I looked at the car and then I look up and the Reverend's standing there, I would have run at that point. You caught me.
Or raise the gun. Like, get away. Don't let him be in striking distance, you know?
Just fire a warning shot into him.
He was coming right for me.
Good thing Sheriff, what's his name? Joe Halloran was a Lone Ranger fan. All of his bullets are silver bullets. Kills him with a Coors Light. So this is like I like the transformation in this scene. It's a lot of like the bladder effects and whatnot of like the pulsing face as it transforms and stretches and all of that.
Yeah, I was really impressed with it.
Yeah, like I know the big ones, like everybody always talks about like The Howling, American Werewolf in London. I do like this transformation in this movie, and I especially like the de-transformation at the end.
I think the problem is the transformation is amazing, but the end result is like...
True.
That's the part where it's like, oh, that looks really cool, and now you look like an oversized Ewok. Like, it just doesn't follow through. It was interesting how they used the bladders to make it look like his face was protruding, but it would cut away at the right times to... Your mind fills in the blanks to like, oh, his face is growing in that area, and I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I think they do, for the most part throughout the movie, they do benefit from like a less is more kind of approach on a lot of things. So, yep. And then poor Terry O'Quinn gets got.
Not slashed, not bitten, but just beaten with a bat.
Yeah. Which actually, this is what? So that means he killed the bartender with a bat and he kills him with the bat. So that means they're probably, at this point, the deputy's looking for some sort of animal attacks and some serial killer who's killed 2 people in town with a baseball bat.
It's really covering his tracks here. It's a werewolf track.
And then the next one by poison, the next 2 by hanging. It's like a regular Agatha Christie out here. So we go back to the kids with Uncle Red, and this is the point where they decide, here's our necklaces, like here's our jewelry thing, made of silver, make us a silver bullet.
I laughed at this part because it's like, kids, he made a motorcycle, but it's not like he's in his garage hammering away like Iron Man, creating this thing in the back. Like, he just assembled the parts and he just threw it all together. Where's he going to make a bullet out of? But then the whole bit with him going, so he takes the necklace, all the silver pieces they give him, and he goes to the nearest like gun shop, and the gunsmith there. I love that whole bit. It's like, hey, my nephew just discovered the Lone Ranger, and do you think? And without even skipping a beat, the gunsmith is just like, you want a silver bullet, don't you? Like that was fucking cool. Like that is probably the easiest way to like, yo, can you make a silver bullet? And everyone would be like, why the fuck would you want that? But I didn't grow up with the Lone Ranger. So the fact that that whole thing panned out as smoothly as it did, because I didn't know where that was going, was smooth as fuck. 10 points to fucking Gary Busey for that one.
This will be the 3rd silver bullet I've made today. For the same reason. Somebody came in here, the kid started to like Lone Ranger.
A reverend dropped off all this silver and asked me to melt it down and discard it. So I like how, even though Uncle Red thinks all of this is ridiculous, if he knows this is going to make his niece and nephew feel better, so he decides to do this anyway. And then I like how, first of all, I don't know gun shops. I'm not a gun person. If you show up at a gun shop for a gunsmith, can you just ask them to make you custom bullets? Like, here, melt all this down for me and make me a bullet?
Well, see, that's the thing. That's why I thought, like, all right, this is really clever, because instead of asking for a custom bullet, he was asking for a custom prop that had some kind of meaning behind it. So I'm sure the gunsmith was probably also a huge fan, so it kind of got him the in. But the thing that kills me is that I sincerely doubt he would make and cast that bullet, but it would not be a live round.
Yeah, to be fireable.
It's a 44 caliber fucking bullet that you're meant to give to a child? I don't think so. He would have put that shit in a normal casing with no gunpowder. No way.
Well, I like the bullet making montage. It was always cool watching him work on melting it down and putting it in, casting it and all of that. It reminded me of when they're making the bullets during the montage in Monster Squad. But the thing that I also thought was cool is the fact that after all of this is done, and then Uncle Red even admits, like, yeah, it's just all some big joke. He's like, what are you even going to do with a silver bullet? And then the guy, like, without missing a beat, looks him dead in the eye. He's like,
how about a werewolf?
But the way he says it isn't like as a joke. It's like, has this guy fought werewolves before? Is he the original werewolf?
I want to see more of the gunsmith.
Yeah, like the gunsmith was such a cool character. Dean, you look pensive.
Oh.
Oh, is this because you said you stopped taking notes as the movie went on? He's listening intently because he's like, I didn't see any of this.
He's still watching.
Next? Yeah. You see like the screen flickering on his face.
Hold on.
And I like how he then transitioned to a wide shot. And so I like how this... In the original book, it ends on New Year's Eve. In this, it ends on Halloween. Why we're releasing this on 4th of July weekend rather than Halloween, I think it's just because at one point the fireworks get canceled. So that'll work.
So they're on Halloween, and then they fell asleep to the national anthem being played on TV?
Yep.
Play ball. I like that the wolf waited for the national anthem to finish before attacking. That was very patriotic.
It pans outside and he has one hand over his heart. I may be a werewolf, but I'm a patriot first, sir. So, Uncle Red is one of my favorite adults in horror, because just for the fact that all of this stuff, he doesn't believe in werewolves, still makes the bullet. He even pays to send the parents away, because he tells them oh, I won a Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. I got this vacation thing. You can have it. And then they ask him afterwards, what?
I forgot those were a thing.
Yeah, and they even ask him afterwards,
Did he really win a trip to New York from Publishers Clearinghouse?
No. But the moon is full. And your parents are gone. And I did win a subscription to Popular Mechanics.
So it's he paid to send them away just so he can be here with the niece and nephew, just to hopefully give them a little bit of peace of mind, which, great. So they're watching, and as you said, end of broadcast back in the day when everything you hit a point of the night where the station shuts off, it ends up going, plays the national anthem, and then you have just static, which now content is an infinite void. So the werewolf, Uncle Red even mentions, it is 10 to 3 in the morning. So that means the werewolf attacks at 2:50 in the morning on November 1st.
I was going to say, he has terrible gun safety, discipline.
He does.
Oh, is it because he slept with the barrel in his mouth?
That's why the wolf showed up. He was trying to save him from suicide.
He's got a loaded gun. Yeah, he falls asleep with it in his lap. It falls. And then when he gets up and turns around, he's holding the gun and he's pointing it at them. He doesn't have you should have it either down or up or away. He's pointing it at them while he's talking to them holy shit, Gary Busey.
The thing I don't
You're
get
nice
is
uncle,
that
but you're really dumb.
He got the bullet. Let's back up. He went to the police. He got the bullet. He got the gun, assuming he didn't have a gun to go with it. He sent his parents away. They sleep all night, and then finally he decides, you know what? This is stupid. And he pulls out the bullet from the gun. This is not going to be, this was a mistake. You got that deep in to decide finally, no, I'm not going to do this anymore.
A very familiar feeling is beginning to come over me.
What?
I'm beginning to feel like a horse's ass. That's what.
He's been drunk the whole time.
And he's finally
really
sobered up.
And
finally, his moment of clarity.
There's no werewolf that's going to show up. This whole thing is stupid. And then the camera cuts and you see the werewolf pull the electrical wire from the fuse box and all the lights go out. And then he's a fuse. It must have went out. Are you serious? You're expecting a werewolf attack. It's the middle of the night. There's no planned or reasonable, why the power would go out. And you think it's just a fuse? He deserves what happens next.
There's got to be a logical explanation for this.
Furry hands and black leather gloves with wire cutters cutting the power to the house.
But seriously though, go back and watch this scene. He picks up the gun that he drops because he was sleeping. He turns to face him. He's waving it around. Then he goes and he has the gun in his hand, and it's pointing forward. He grabs the handles of Marty's wheelchair and is pushing him with the gun in his hand, facing him. It's just so nonchalant with a damn gun in his hand. It stuck out to me. It was funny.
It was a different time. I mean, hey, he gave a child fireworks.
Those are illegal in some states.
Yep.
I like how Jane looks out the window and sees a flash of the werewolf, so she screams. And I like how Gary Busey reacts like he's actually startled. And I don't know if that's just they didn't tell him that she was going to scream at some point in the scene, but he actually looks over whoa.
I love how he's did you see anything, Marty? And he's like, no, I was looking at you.
Yeah.
They clearly were having eye contact, but it was the girl that saw it. So just seeing that really made me laugh.
Which I like how then they hear the noise and they both look over into the hallway into the next room that's dark. And they're kind of the music's building and they're setting it up this camera's moving in, there's something in that room. And then all of a sudden, from the wall behind Uncle Red, the Kool-Aid Man, the werewolf just bursts through the entire wall behind him. I like how they kind of set you up for that misdirection of, there's going to be something over here, and boom, from behind.
You know, if this was D&D when the monster attacked, Busey was caught flat-footed with a defense roll of 1. Because just the way that he loses everything in his hands, the bullet goes flying and it goes into the air vent. Just worst timing ever.
I mean, the only thing worse would have been if he got startled, dropped the gun, and it shot Marty. The werewolf just looks at him, just gives like the Jeremiah Johnson nod to him, and then walks out of the house.
They shot Marty in the spine. It reversed his paralysis.
Marty gets up and runs after him.
He digs the bullet out of his spine and slingshots it at the werewolf's eye.
Just like it. So I like how, for a normal man, Uncle Red then goes toe-to-toe with this werewolf, mano-a-mano, while they try to fish the bullet out of the air vent.
Yeah. He's the only one that stands a chance, like, stood up to the werewolf.
Yeah.
For more than 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, he's like fist fighting it. He's grabbing like the fire poker. He's getting thrown through stuff.
Yeah.
Which I think, I don't know if it's true, but I remember reading like Gary Busey did some of the stunts in this scene. So it's actually
it's definitely
him getting thrown.
flying at the wall.
Yeah, I heard it fucked him up too a little bit. Like he caught glass in his arm or something.
I think in one scene where it's supposed to be, I think like the fake glass or something, but it still punctured him. So you see the glass sticking out of his arm.
So like Leonardo DiCaprio in
Django.
Different context, but yeah.
Dango and Jane.
So they finally get the bullet out while he's just shellacking Uncle Red. Throws the bullet into the pistol, and Marty shoots him perfectly in the other eye.
1 in a million
The
shot.
other eye.
The thing that kills
Why
me
the other
too
eye?
is I know enough about guns with the power of that shot should have put a hole in the kid's head from just the recoil alone. A 44
Kid's
Magnum. Yeah, a 44 Magnum. The kid is not strong enough to hold this pistol, so it definitely would have.
Oh, I didn't realize they had a 44 Magnum.
Yeah.
That's like a Clint Eastwood situation.
You see the size of the bullet?
I thought it was a rifle bullet, honestly, at first.
No.
I think what would have been even better if they have that, and he does like a smile, you son of a bitch scene to top off the Jaws thing, and then he fires and he just like shoots a lamp 3 feet to the left of it. And then it's just like a look of fear, and then it just cuts to the outside of the house, and you just hear him tearing through the 3 of them.
Wow, Marty, that's a nice shot. Oh, I was aiming for his heart. Like, well, at least you still hit him.
So
Gary Busey's face on this scene when he's like grappling like with the wolf, he just has this kind of like, he's not scared. He's like, I could take you, you son of a bitch. He's like got his tongue like contorted, like I could figure this out.
I would love if they never got the bullet and just Uncle Red just fights this thing to a draw. The parents get home, it's daylight, he's still fighting him, he transforms back into a reverend and he breaks his neck.
Yeah, I'd really like to find like the aftermath of this movie, like how did they explain this?
So we get this fun de-transformation scene of like it's cool how like the hair pulls back into the body and all of this. And then, as they said in Scream, the moment where the thought dead killer returns for one last scare. So the Reverend is laying there and then does like one last whoa, and then completely dies. Great. How are they going to explain a naked Reverend with both eyes blown out laying in the middle of their living room when the parents come home? Although considering that the police department is now that one deputy, I don't think they'll ever be tried.
Yeah, I don't even. I mean, it's pretty easy to explain considering there's the whole size of a werewolf in their living room.
I guess there's probably evidence at the Reverend's place too, like the dead sheriff or wherever he put him.
Oh yeah, because that would be the only killing that he did that was like
human,
not left out somewhere. Yeah.
Wait, did he turn it? Yeah, he did turn into a werewolf for the chief killing, right?
Yeah, he turned into a werewolf and then just still built him with that.
That's right. That's right.
He was still transforming as gave him like a fatal blow.
He turns into a werewolf, hits him with a bat, then he grabs the guy's hand, grabs his gun, writes a note, and then shoots himself.
Kill yourself.
It was the weirdest thing. He showed up at my house despondent and shot himself in my garage. So
I do like the last gag.
Oh, Marty's joke.
I really thought it was going to go in a different direction. Like, guys, my leg really hurts. And then it's like, oh my God, you're not paralyzed anymore. But no, instead it went the other way. Like,
Marty, are you all right? All except for my legs. What? I don't think I could walk.
I think Marty's going to need years of therapy.
Clearly he won't, just for the fact that it's like, he just shot the same guy twice, and he's just like making jokes.
Well, maybe
That's
he does.
What I mean, I feel like he's burying it with the jokes.
Like it's gonna wake up in a cold sweat some night and be like, "Oh, please, Lord, let it stop."
Maybe he does get put into a psych ward, because at the pretty much right before the credits roll, you hear the narrator one more time, and it's his sister, much older, saying like, "Yeah, and that was the last time I think I saw him laugh." Or something like that's like it's just such a dark way of discussing it. Like, damn, what happened to the
that
kid?
was the craziest summer ever.
Yeah, right.
And that was my college acceptance letter.
That's what I did on my summer vacation.
I think the last line was something like "Good night, Marty, I love you" or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't explain away the thing with the Reverend, and Marty took the rap for the killing. The deputy shows up, hauls him away in cuffs. He's in Supermax for the rest of his life.
I wasn't always able to say that. But I can say it now. I love you too, Marty. Good night.
It's just got a lot of unpaid speeding tickets.
We saw you on that Silver Bullet Mark II out there. They're going away for a long time.
At the end, she just says, "I wasn't always able to say it, but I can say it now. I love you too, Marty."
Oh,
now
yeah.
that you've saved me from werewolf death.
Yeah. So it's kind of an odd ending, because it's like, I guess it's not directly anything bittersweet in terms of that narration, but it just seems odd. Like, who is she narrating to? Is she telling us the story? Is she reminding Marty? Like, I don't know. But I still, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I still love this movie.
It was
enjoyable to watch.
I didn't hate it. It's just I did enjoy watching it, but just it's not my thing.
Yeah. I mean, still to this day, even though I love the movie so much, there are so many things as far as like decisions made of, why did you go investigate this at night by yourself? Like those types of things.
Yeah.
But
Those
like
tropes,
it's great. So does anybody
It's a
have
fun
any final
childhood
thoughts on Silver Bullet?
I think if I were to watch it in its prime, like early 90s at the very least, I probably would have a deeper appreciation for it. Certain movies nowadays, it's tough to watch because it's just, some have aged better than others. So like I laughed when, like, in the very beginning, when the drunk railroad man got his head severed and you saw it like flying through the air. Like, I laughed because it looked terrible, but like thinking back in the day when those effects were, brand new at the time, I'm sure it would have looked a lot better and it would have set the tone a lot more. So I think it's more of a I'm late to the party kind of feeling to it.
I think it might also be a case of, as time goes on and other movies that then build on things or like are homages to things and whatnot, it's okay. So you might have seen the Psycho shower scene for the first time as started that whole thing. It's like,
yeah.
But if you watch other movies later on, that's not shocking and new. It's this has been done a bunch of times. Like they didn't mock it, but they paid homage to the Psycho scene even in the beginning of, like, I don't know, Tobe Hooper's Funhouse, where the kid is walking into the shower or something like that. It's like you see these same types of tropes and these same types of ideas pop up later. So it's a case of, it's not fresh and original because you've already seen this happen over the years for everybody else that might have grown up on these original things. And then, oh yeah, I'm going to do a similar thing in my movie.
I remember asking my mother years ago, like, oh, what's your favorite scary movie? Which one really got you? And she was like, The Exorcist. Especially like when Reagan is like throwing up and stuff and like screaming and doing all of that crazy like cursing against the priest. Like, it scared the shit out of her as a kid. And it's polarizing considering that like that scared her so much back then, or like left such an imprint that like when I was finally of age enough to watch it, it had like no impression on me. only because of just how much time has passed. And it's interesting to see that back then it had more of the desired effect than it would now. Still appreciative now, because I mean, it is a good movie considering, but at least for it being one of the first ones to do that type of stuff, it's really out there.
Yeah. I mean, for example, like when the first Blair Witch came out.
Yeah.
And that was like terrifying to audiences and all of this, and it was groundbreaking. I never saw it around the time when it had come out, so I ended up watching it like 15 years later, and it was a case of, this style has been done since then, and I feel like the style's been done better since then, so yeah, it's groundbreaking, but it ends up losing something for me that it doesn't get to have that impact, because I have 15 years of other things that have come up in between that, so it's...
No, I was going to ask, like, so what do you think is the new horror trope then? I
don't know what the
finger on the vein a lot more than we do, so
I don't know what the new horror trope necessarily is. I feel like a lot more horror is going by way of like the slow burn A24 style stuff, like Hereditary or like any of the Ari Aster things. It's all of the more things are just slightly weird, slightly off kilter, and then going for like a fever pitch in the last 20 minutes kind of deal. I feel like there's a lot more movies going that route. I don't know if it's just a case of they saw the success of something like Hereditary, or if it's a case of they know that they can keep budgets low because they don't need like a nonstop slasher movie of here's all these big kills and big scenes. It's, we just have to set up this kind of creepy aesthetic. We just have to keep that ambiance going just to kind of build dread throughout the movie. So I see a lot more kind of that slow burn independent horror these days.
Dean, you don't do much horror, right? Not your forte or cup of tea.
It's not my bag, baby. I'll see horror on recommendations, and if it's like supposed to be a good movie as well, not just a
So like you'll see Hereditary
genre.
Because so many people have said, "Oh, this is amazing, you need to see it." Not like,
right.
"Oh, it's the new horror."
Only because it's right.
Yeah,
and I really don't do that with horror, just because it's like not totally my bag.
Yeah,
I'm not saying those. I'm not negating anybody. Obviously, those. I see. You can like that. You like what you like. God damn it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just not for me. But if it bridges like out of the horror genre and just a good film overall, I'm like, yeah, I'll check it out.
Well, that's how this motley crew works, because we all have our different bases covered and we overlap in specific areas. I'm not a horror person, but I seem to watch them a lot more than I realize.
We're like Tim, I want to Venn diagram.
I have a confession. I think the biggest reason I did not like this movie is because I'm a vampire person. And I don't care about werewolves. Like, I've yet to see one good one that wasn't like evolution.
Evolution. Got your fruit basket right here.
What the fuck is that? The Kate Beckinsale one, but like the origin
Underworld.
one. Yeah, Underworld. That's it.
Underworld Evolution was one of the names.
Yeah. Rise of the Lycans. That one was fucking amazing, and it was a prequel. Considering usually prequels don't do well, but. Yeah, that one was probably my favorite werewolf movie, and then outside of that, I really can't think of a one after.
So now we just have to get a vampire movie picked.
That's gonna be tough.
I think for me, horror is two categories: like non-scary horror. Like I would consider this. I wasn't scared watching this movie, but it still classifies as a horror. Then there's horror that actually makes me scared and uncomfortable, which I don't always really enjoy. Which is what I think of when I say I don't like horror. It's like I don't like being scared watching a movie. That's not my.
So Dean, when are we playing? When are we playing Phasmophobia?
Yeah, right. I'll be the guy in the van.
I'm telling you, man, the seat's warm and ready for you.
Dean's going to be the one cutting out the letters for the letter he's going to send to the ghosts.
To the ghosts.
I know what you are. I know who you are.
Why don't you just make yourself alive?
Why don't you exercise yourself? So, yeah, I think all in all, it's actually the next pick for me, since we do a rotation, is going to be October. So we'll see what I come up with for the Halloween time.
You son of a bitch! You playing this on purpose?
It's going to be Mr. Boogedy. So
I can't wait.
So for anybody out there that has seen Silver Bullet, anybody out there that grew up on it, just likes it, either give it a shot if you haven't seen it. Let us know what your kind of memories are on it, if you ended up liking it, if you have seen it before, or if it's one of the ones that you like. But other than that, I think that rounds things out for this month of Screen Refresh. So thank you for joining us along. Catch us next week, or catch us on the third Monday of the month for another episode of Rule of Thirds. We'll end up kind of deciding on whatever our next movie pick is going to be for the first Monday of August. But for Dean and Nick, this is Tim. I don't have a sign off.
Oh, yeah, we don't. So this movie is not the one with Steve McQueen. I really thought it was the Steve McQueen movie. And then I saw The Moon and it talked about werewolves. I'm like, no, this is Tim's choice. Yeah. I'm stopping audio. Good night, everyone.
Oh, that hurts my parts.